My name is James Rowlands, and in 2015 I started the WNR podcast with my friend
Dan White. And every month we bring you the latest collections, newest content, 205 Live and the crown jewel of the WNR NXT update.
Also each month the latest pay-per-views, and we are live not only for the Big Four but every takeover as well.
Plus, in 2019, we go back 20 years and witness the Attitude Rise and the WCW's demise.
Until we've watched everything, we are with you, and we are the WNR. Yes, hello, I am James Rowlands, and as always, I'm joined by
Dan White.
And today it's the WNR 225. Yes, 225 episodes of the Wwe Network Review podcast, and we are pleased to be here, and we've got a great episode lined up for you. But before we start anything, Dan's got a very special alternate intro.
Come closer and see into the trees. Find the girl if you can. Come closer and see into the dark. Just follow your eyes. Just follow your eyes. And that is The Cure of Forest. And that is arguably their best song they've done out of a total of 225 songs. So that's where it links into episode 225.
That's brilliant. And ever since our very first episode, we have asked a question: is the WWE Network Review worth the $9? And today we are definitely going to answer that question and a lot more, because for the first time ever on the WNR podcast, we are going to have a complete WWE Network review. Yes, we are going through everything, so strap yourselves in. We don't know how long this is going to go, but we are ready, willing and able to start this off. So we're going to do it. And first off, just like to say, to get to 225 episodes, I think is an incredible achievement in no matter what you're doing, you know, just for perseverance. So I'd like to thank you, Dan, for your perseverance with me through 225 episodes.
You'd like to thank me for putting up with you for 225 episodes. And,
I know,
you know, the same goes for you as well, putting up with me and my moods and my happiness and my Orton rants and everything else as well.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about. And like I said, we're going to be doing this as long as we can stand each other. No, of course we can't. So, like we said, it's a WWE Network, and we're going to give you a couple of bits and pieces. Watch it, and basically ways we started watching. Everybody knows the network started in January of 2014. Of course, everybody knows the podcast started. Dan, when did our WNR podcast start?
In May. It started on May the 4th, 2015.
Of course it did, and ever since then, like I say, we're watching all the latest content, and we're going to check out everything and date back everything that we kind of watched on it. But ways we watch, and it's been very varied. I mean, right now, as we speak, we've got the PS4 hooked up to the TV. We have watched it through the smart TVs before. I've watched it on my tablet, which is a Samsung tablet. Dan, how do you watch?
I watch it on my PS4, and I watch it to fall asleep on my tablet as well.
Yeah, and I've used the PS3 to watch it in the past. I've obviously used the laptop to watch it. I've even used the Amazon Fire Stick to check that out. So there's been a lot of varied ways to get the network, and I've tried it, and you know, I think it's good enough in its selection. Even though we did complain about taking a few TVs away, there's still, you know, ways we watch it anyway. What is your favourite way of watching the network? Apart from with me, of course.
Oh, beside you, James, always is. It's not the network unless I'm next to you. No, well, mine is having the network set with my screen brightness down really low, volume on quite low, set up next to me while I'm falling asleep. And then, like, you know, I'd sometimes fall asleep a couple of matches into WrestleMania 18 and wake up and it's like near the end of WrestleMania 20.
So that's the time you usually watch. When's the most, you know, people say about network time. When is your network time?
It is as often, mainly.
It's used as background
Yeah, occasionally I watch, like, if there's a good episode of NXT or 205 Live or a few of my favourite shows, which we'll go into throughout this episode as well. I watched it, obviously, watching whatever I fancy, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the thing, there's times you watch it, and some people have it on as a kind of security blanket to go to bed to. Kind of, when I can, I just have it on as like a background. I'll stick on like an old pay-per-view, and then I'll go about my business, and I'll be able to catch it every now and again, and be like, okay, that's on, that's good. And of course, as we record as well, we usually record on the Saturday for release on the Sunday. If we're lucky, we're a week ahead, as it was. And that'd be quite good. And sometimes with watching the network so much and the build in the recording and the setup to it, the spare time's kind of usually spent, doing other things. But the kind of network is always there as well, isn't it? So now we get on to what we watch basically, and kind of what our favourite shows are on the network. And we're going to go into, like I say, we're going to go to in big detail. Coming up now. So we'll start off, and of course, like we said, with a home screen, and like we said, we're talking through PS4. Dan's got his tablet in front of him as well, so he's got his set. What's different from your setup than it is to my setup, Dan?
Well, your setup, as opposed to having to go across the top bar, you've got home, shows, schedule, search, and my account. Mine, it goes schedule, and then I scroll down and it's got continue watching, scroll down, watch list, shows, pay-per-views, collection, and recommended as well. And I can also click on a tab and it goes to the latest news, all the latest Raw updates, and so on and so forth.
Well, on your watch list, what have you got anything that you use your watch list, or is it usually just continue watching stuff?
Mine is normally continue watching.
Well, usually what I do on the, obviously you can see it's featured continue watching, watch list, collections, and then the kind of recommended programs that you've got. And usually most of the recommended stuff gets added to the watch list straight away in preparation for that month's kind of either WWE Network review for the month or whatever else we're doing. And it's usually kind of bookmarked in the episode of WWE vs WCW for that month as well. And that's kind of what we watch every month, It's kind of good that we got to a stage you can do a pay-per-view every month that we watch, which is we watch that through. And of course then we've got WWE versus WCW, haven't we, when we've gone back 20 years to watch this stuff. WWE for the month as well, WWE Network Review, which is, enjoyable. So out of the kind of three, because we have to usually split two, what ones do you find enjoyable the most? Or has it just got to a stage now where it's just kind of bleeds into another, so to speak?
It does kind of bleed into another. I do enjoy catching up on the NXT UK, and sort of 205 Live, but that's kind of gone down the wayside. And I also do like going back watching 20 years ago Nitro and Raw, because that's when it was in the Attitude Era, and that's when wrestling was thoroughly enjoyable, and you'd want to watch the next week's happening and see what's going on with that as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. So what we're going to do, so everybody at home who's listening to us, who are obviously not driving, please, you can get on the network right now and just follow through the programs we go to, and hopefully it's the same as yours. So we're going to start off with shows, and from shows, I will let Dan pick. So at the moment you can see my picks, but Dan, you've got your all your shows up there. So we start off. We've got pay-per-views,
in ring,
originals,
collection,
and of course my favourite, the Vault, which I will be going on a lot about later. What do you want to start off with, Dan?
I'm going to go right in the middle with originals.
Oh, so we start off with originals on the WWE Network, and we're going to go through basically every program. Now, it probably won't be a surprise, but we're going to mark these programs as well and try and see what the best is. I think a score out of 10 for each program, because then it's more varied. It might be a little bit shorter, so I feel out of 10, and then we can work out kind of what the best original program is. Yeah, what the best original program is on the network, so to speak. So we'll start off with originals. I think, like I say, if the scoring gets a bit too confusing, then we're trying to explain it out. But basically, me and Dan are going to give a score, or might even give a collective score if we argue about it. Then we'll see what happens. But we'll start off with WWE 24. And WWE 24, I think, is a fantastic series. And you know, when we look about the kind of the talent that's been involved in it and the telling of a story, the very first one was January 26, 2015, WrestleMania 30. And it's all about the kind of behind the scenes, and I've always enjoyed the behind the scenes looks at programs like this. And I think with W24, you kind of get it more than you do in other shows. And I think since its inception, it's been quite good to see, you know, the kind of legends that have been involved with it. What you're thinking of W24, Dan?
Yeah, I think they're very good. I think one of the early ones we watched was actually on. It was released the day we started the podcast. It was Roman Reigns, Never Alone. It was released Monday, May the 4th, 2015. And I can remember after it feeling like I appreciated Roman Reigns a lot more. Like, you know, I got to know him, the man, as opposed to, like, you know, just a wrestler. You see his family, you see him kind of like outside of wrestling as well, which is it was a very, very good insight to the man that is Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Raw 25 one, which was April 9th, 2018, and they went behind the scenes and see it being in the Manhattan Center as well as the Brooklyn as well, and it's kind of good to see how hectic it actually was. But I think as a W Network program, it's one of the strongest actually when we started off, you know. So out of a rating of 10, Dan, what would you give W24? I know. We're starting off. We can go back and change. We will be checking as we finish a section, basically. And there are a lot of programs to get through, I know.
I'm going to start with 8.5. Subject to...
That's fine. I'm going to give it a strong 9 to start this one, big favourites. But we do move on. And the next one, Dan?
It is WWE 365. And there's only been 2 episodes of this. We've only had Kevin Owens and AJ Styles. Kevin Owens... It was a very, very good episode. I mean, like, you know, 365 days of incredible highs and lows in the career of Kevin Owens as they chronicle his journey from SummerSlam 2016 to SummerSlam.
Yeah, and we've watched both on the WWE Network as well. And the AJ Styles one was November 18th, 2018. November 18th, 2018, relive AJ Styles' historic year as WWE champion, both in and out of the ring, and witness a phenomenal one as you've never seen it before. That's quite cool because he picked up the WWE Championship, beating Jinder Mahal just before the end of that program as well. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good program, but only 2 of them. It's a bit of a shame. It's a more long-winded, obviously, WWE24 into 365. So you can see, you know, hopefully we will have one later this year as well. But I think it's good. What's your score?
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 as well. If there was a few more, then, you know, I'd probably score a bit higher, but unfortunately, as there is only 2, they are a bit longer. They're about 45, 50 minutes. Yeah,
about that. Yeah, so it's definitely worth going to check anything out. You know, we have watched, like I said, all the W24s and W365, and we'll point out any programs that we haven't watched. The next one is Beyond the Ring, and this is a kind of maybe a little Easter egg if people don't really know what it is. And basically, it's the old WWE DVD stuff, documentary style, put on there.
One that I know that we have definitely watched together, and that is Beyond the Ring, signature sounds of music, the WWE. You know, it's basically, what's that name? Jim Johnson and other wrestlers going on about how they kind of created the themes and, you know, how it was fitting for certain wrestlers and how they've had to change a few themes, you know, to try and fit round wrestlers as well, it is good to see that side of things.
Without doubt. Like I said, it's not... With the DVDs involved, or it's basically documentaries from that. So obviously you don't get the matches. Some you do. There's some great if you've never ever seen them before as well. And just try and flick through. You know, like factions as well involved. The great superstars of the '90s. Just you know my DVD collection. I don't want to go into this is what it basically is on the network. You know, on the network you've got lots of stuff. Probably my favourite one, and I think everybody should watch it. January 1st, 2010, The True Story of WrestleMania, telling you everything that happened. You've even got behind the scenes what happens at WrestleMania 9 and all the kind of stories about what WrestleMania's worked.
Are you trying to entice me in with a WrestleMania 9?
Honest to goodness, it is 2.5 hours. I watch it kind of every year leading up to WrestleMania. It is a fantastic documentary, and there is loads of good stuff. No matter what you know kind of fancy, it's always there, and it's nice and quick. Again, 45 minutes to an hour, and you know some of them obviously a little bit longer, but they don't kind of outstay their welcome. welcome either, you know.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones. There's a few good lists as well. I love a good list. 50 greatest finishing moves. 50 superstars of all time, not as good as our list wrestlers. There's a Randy Orton one, a CM Punk best in the world one as well. There's just so many to go through and enjoy. Whoever you like, you're going to find something either relating to them or something that stands out to you.
Without a doubt, even that kind of the Bischoff one, just to sit down and interview, it's really, really good. And they've added the DDP one recently as well, so hopefully they'll keep adding to that. So anybody's not been, because sometimes you might see it and think, oh, what's that about? That's basically explaining the section to you as well. I'm giving that a 9.5 out of 10 because it's one of my favourite places to go on the network.
There are other places I enjoy to go, so I'm going to give it an 8.
Ooh, an 8. Next one, WWE Breaking Ground. So Breaking Ground is, you remember Cleat Geeks? We were talking about that. That's kind of one of the programs I was following on there. It's a behind the scenes look at kind of NXT and the breakout stars. And unfortunately it did feature people like Enzo and Big Cass, but you kind of saw the story. And I thought it was fucking brilliant because it was kind of no holds barred, a real kind of behind the look at kind of everything that happened and how you became. And Baron Corbin was featured in it a lot as well. And at that point, the kind of character he had, it almost made me feel that, oh shit, here comes a big star here. Unfortunately, I've not done any since 2016, so that's a bit of a shame. But it was one of those programs I really enjoyed. Dan, by your look on your face, I see you're not that accustomed to it.
It's not something that I've ever watched or I've been enticed into watching. I'll have to give it a 5.
Don't you? How can you're going to put down its average if you're not careful?
Well, I've never seen it and never watched it, so how can I score it?
Well, at least you're being honest with everybody. I'm giving that 9.5 out of 10. Again, one of my favourite things on the WWE Network. Up next.
Up next is Bring It to the Table. Yeah, sitting down with Pete Rosenberg. I mean, there's only 6 episodes on there. They was released January 2017 all the way to July 2017. You've got the pilot where Paul Heyman, JBL, and Pete Rosenberg sit down, discuss, debate, and dissect the controversies and concerns of the WWE universe.
And you've watched it on the WWE Network, and like you said, Peter Rosenberg we've got a bit of news about him next week as well. It's kind of might be making WWE Network content for a little while now as well. It was trying to be a little bit edgy and try and get to the points, but when you've got people like JBL on there, you're always going to have the WWE kind of policy, and that's what let it down a little bit as a program. So unfortunately, not one of the WWE Network's best. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll stick with that 7.
Even though you gave Breaking Ground a 5.
Well, I've seen Bring It to the Table. I've not seen Breaking Ground.
All right, up next, Camp WWE. And this is one of them that's made 2 series. One of them made last year. It again is WWE's attempt to try something different. I can appreciate that. But what I can't appreciate is kind of just how bad it really was. We have watched a few of these as well, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We've seen a few. It is just basically a cartoon aimed at kids, maybe up to about the age of 12, 13, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it tries to be a little bit edgy, but it just never works, does it? No. Like the last episode, Mr. McMahon descends into madness when he's haunted by ghosts, while Cena and Nikki investigate some strange disappearances at the camp. It's like a fucked up Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, yeah. WWE Scooby-Doo.
What was your rating?
I'll give that a 7 as well.
Fucking hell! All right, I'm going to give it a 6.5 anyway. I'm not. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I'm not here to argue with you, Dan. Next one.
WWE Chronicle. This is basically you follow a wrestler for a certain amount of time. It is quite similar to. It's halfway between a 365 and a 24. It's like you follow him for a short kind of time. Nakamura, you're following from the Rumble to WrestleMania 13, and basically there's only 8, 9 episodes.
Yeah, I mean Nakamura's first, Mojo was second,
Dean Ambrose,
and then Becky Lynch,
Paige,
Roman Reigns,
Charlotte Flair,
Roman Reigns again.
And Ali as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Roman Reigns ones are really, really good. And like I said, we like Chronicle, don't we? It is quite a good program.
Yeah, it is. It is. Again, I'd like a few more, but I'd like, again, staggered. Ali was released May 18th, 2019, so it's kind of, they are still keeping up to date with them.
If you could have a superstar, anybody on the Chronicle, who would you want them to follow?
Seth Rollins?
Seth Rollins? All right, not bad. No, it's not bad. Chronicle, what was your score?
I'd give that an 8.5.
I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Again, not bad. My only gripe with it a little bit is there's a kind of thing between playing in character and out of character, which sometimes, you know what I mean?
I think we noticed that with the Dean Ambrose one. Yeah.
It was a bit too much, which is a bit of a shame. And the Charlotte one as well, I think, had a lot of it. Next one, WWE Countdown. Again, very early program on the kind of WWE Network. Start 25th of February 2014. And this basically does exactly what it says on the tin. There is a lot of countdown. There's a lot of top 10s on this one, basically. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to roll coolest catchphrase.
Awesome entrances.
Fantastic finishing moves.
Biggest backstabs.
Biggest blunders.
Raw's most memorable moments.
Infamous gimmicks.
Greatest tag teams.
Greatest villains.
Craziest ladder matches.
Memorable debuts.
Greatest factions.
Hottest couples.
Biggest trash talkers.
Dangerous divas.
Magnificent managers.
Celebrity twists.
Thunderous returns.
Riveting rivalries.
Hell in a Cell.
Most imposing big men.
Greatest
big man.
general managers.
Top Royal Rumble moments.
Greatest high flyers.
And
best and worst Survivor Series.
Biggest crybabies.
Most infamous IC champs.
Most unique matches.
Eccentric odd jobs.
Most epic SmackDown moments.
International sensations.
Strangest bedfellows.
And men.
Yeah. So this is something that you can always catch up on. Doesn't know what it's saying in the tin. I've caught a few of these, but again, you know.
But who actually ranks these in order? Are they putting out a like a survey, or is it just who one man thinks and just puts them all into a list?
I think it's like WWE, one man puts them in a list. It's not saying they didn't say it's done by WWE Universe. I guess it's just random picks to get it done. But it's not a bad program. But again, it's something they're kind of filling up time at the moment. I'm going to give that Countdown a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on a 7 out of 10. The next one up is Culture Shock with Corey Graves. And this is basically Corey Graves going out and having a look at different things. He goes to Marvel headquarters, Star Wars, tattoo conventions, bowling. He just goes to different places and to some familiar faces or unfamiliar faces, really. Yeah,
only 10-15 minutes long, and it started April 22nd, 2015. And it didn't really last that long, to be fair. I mean, you know, with Corey Graves, he's tried a lot of things in WWE since, obviously, his apparent injury. And he's found his niche now in commentary. We have watched a few of these on the network. And again, it's basic, but I think WWE Network should be trying something different. And maybe they tried but failed here. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, you know, it kind of takes you outside the world of wrestling.
Exactly, but this is the thing, do we really need that on here, or is it used right anyway? You know, I think Corey Graves is likeable enough, but it might miss out a little bit. What's your score?
I'm going to give that a 7.5. It's, you know, it's not something that I'd protest to have more episodes of.
But you do like Corey. So next is Edge and Christian show, and of course we've had 2 series of this. The last series was never fucking ending, and I do love Edge and Christian, but there was 10 episodes, and it some of it, well, we were talking about, weren't we? And it was like maybe half hour of jokes in the entire 10 episode run. Apart from that, there was nothing really. You know, there's Kill Bill stuff that they did that didn't really hit the mark. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't funny, wasn't it? You know?
Well, it's basically like it's a story over an episode broken up into different bits. You know, it's kind of like they're parodies of things that have happened, like films or, you know, in-ring stories or something like that. And, you know, they're broken up. I think there's about 4 or 5 parts of it over an episode, and that's broken up with little sketch shows or skits in between with different wrestlers, or they've got their games, or, you know, their little quiz show thing that they do. I find that quite enjoyable.
Yeah, that's probably the best bit, isn't it, when they Edge versus Christian
yeah
done the can't remember what's Chump Stain Challenge. But yeah, like the Heartbreak Kid was involved, like a Mexican one. It just wasn't that great last series, so that might be the end of it. Plus, it might have cost a bit of money to actually get it done. I'm going to give that 7.5 out of 10, though.
I'm going to give that a 7 3/4, only because of the Chump Stain Challenge. I think that was kind of like the shining light. There was a couple of moments that might have made me giggle. But
All right, next one.
The next one is First Look. And again, this is kind of like the DVDs that have been released, or, you know, that they would be released if it wasn't all on the network now. You know, from the Brothers of Destruction's greatest moments to the Best of Sting, the Road is Jericho, Destruction of the Shield, and so on and so forth throughout like various multitude of wrestlers.
Unlike Beyond the Ring, where you kind of get the kind of full documentary, this is kind of like the tip. You know, this is the kind of 15 minutes clip of the new thing coming out on DVD to try and persuade you to go out and buy it still. So the DVD market is still relevant in that way, even though you can get the majority stuff on the WWE Network. And, you know, there are some things here like the Jerry the King Lawler thing, which is in full on Beyond the Ring if you want to go and watch that anyway. So it's kind of, you know, bits and pieces that they've done, as well as the Scott Hall and kind of Eric Bischoff thing as well. So this is kind of like a folder where, you know, you leave it alone, really, I would say. March 21st, 2018 was the last edition to it. And there's Beyond the Ring section is probably a lot better for that. In that case, then, I don't think there's any point for this, so I'm going to give this a kind of 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's just basically like a trailer which you can get on YouTube or something anyway, so it's nothing groundbreaking there, so 4, yeah.
Yeah, 4 out of 10, so not 4 out of 5. I said 4 out of 5, I can't help myself, yeah.
9, and then what's next, James?
Okay, so up next is W formerly known as, and this is a new series we've been talking about recently, and we went through it all based, you know, Seth Rollins, Matt Hardy, Bayley and Harper, all saying what they would look like before. Heidi Lovelace calls for Ruby Riott, it's a very interesting story, and Harper as well, which is weird because Brody, he will be out on the independent scene as well. And one of your favourite guys, Dan, at least we got an episode of him. Yes,
Gix or Tyler Black, and that is obviously who he's known as, but it's Seth Rollins when he was coming up through the independents.
These are a series that were on YouTube and now on here as well. And they're only like kind of 10-15 minutes long, but I think are more worthwhile than like the last thing we just saw with First Look. So I don't mind these, Dan. What are your thoughts?
No, they're entertaining. It's good to see them kind of acknowledge their former personas before they was changed by the WWE. And it is a good, again, another good insight to the wrestlers.
So we're going to give it?
I'll give that 7.5.
Oh, I will give that 7.5 as well. And up next, Dan.
It is the no, sorry. It is the Hall of Fame, and that basically goes back all the way. Well, it goes from 94, 95 and 96, and then it skips a few years because it was kind of it was missed out, I suppose.
Well,
it was stopped.
Yeah, the thing is, it was first introduced in '94 to honour Andre the Giant. They did it for a couple of years and then brought it back for WrestleMania 20, and then since then it's kind of been a staple of the WWE calendar. And of course this year's was very eventful as well, wasn't it?
Yes. Bret Hart was attacked, quite rightly so now if you look at what he's done with AEW. I'm not saying anything else.
No.
But, you know, the likes of China was finally recognised and inducted into the Hall of Fame, which is absolutely brilliant. But if you like long speeches and a couple of good little laughs, it is something to watch, but it's not something that I'd probably go back and watch a few of the headline act moments, but it's not something that I'd go through from the beginning and watch like a religion. Yeah,
not like I did. I've seen every Hall of Fame. I kind of enjoyed them all. Hulk Hogan with Roddy Piper in 2005 was a good kind of big class for me. Of course, Eddie and Brett the following year as well, you know, and even Austin's speech was good. So there's always things to kind of go back and look. And the Hall of Fame, you know, it holds a special place, I think, not only in my heart, but the WNR podcast heart every year, you know, in a weird way. Like there's something that we just kind of really like about it in tribute to other older wrestlers.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is that side to it. So what are you going to give it out of 10 then?
Again, watching it alongside WrestleMania weekends, it's something, that we do religiously. But I think on that kind of basis, I'm going to give it 7 3/4. It's something, that I'll watch once, but I won't go back and watch it and watch it.
Yeah, not repeat viewing. I give them 8.5 because I do love the Hall of Fame, and I do find myself going back every time I do. Got 5 hours to kill to put that on as well. Next one is Holy Foley. We have watched the entire series on the WNR podcast. We have indeed, Dan. Yeah, I know.
That's how memorable it is.
Yeah, time flies.
Noel Foley. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you say Noel Foley, right? And the first one's August 15th, 2016. Last one, January 29th, 2017. But it was a great little moment when Mick Foley's boy was playing the guitar and Dewey was playing Mankind's theme tune. I thought that was quite a cool moment. And of course, when they all went on the ride as well, was quite a funny moment. Noelle thought she could train to be a wrestler. Unfortunately, she wasn't successful. But I liked Holy Foley. You weren't a huge fan, then, I sound.
No, not Noel Foley.
So what's your score out of 10 then?
I'll give it a 7.
So you only had like one word answer for the whole show, and yet it still gets 2 more than WWE Breaking Ground.
Something I've never seen.
So you've never seen, even though he's only got. That's great. That's fantastic. Anyway, next one.
Jet Too Hot. Well, what can I say? It was something that was considered raunchy or steamy or something for WWE television, I suppose. Presented by Jerry Springer. Yeah,
it was. We've watched these on the network, all of them, and one of them was on our very earliest shows that we had. And basically, Jerry Springer had an agreement with WWE to make some content, and it really didn't work. And like I said, they were trying to show moments that we've kind of seen recently, Choppy Choppy PP, and other things like this, Live Sex Celebration. And it didn't really work. Jerry Springer for the network wasn't too hot for TV. Again, I didn't mind it. They were trying to say different, but it wasn't the greatest. So I will give that a 6.5 out of 10.
I'll give that a 6. Not that. Up next, we have Legends House. And James, I know this was something that you thoroughly enjoyed. You used to always keep talking to me about it and the characters in there. It's it's something that I might pick up on and have a watch at some point, but it's not something that I need to watch.
You do need to watch. Look at that picture. Series 1, Episode 4, Viva Las Vegas. Pat Patterson, Legends, Strip, Chippendales, Dan. You're saying to me, you don't want to see Rowdy Roddy Piper. You don't want to see Hacksaw Jim Duggan, huh? You don't want to see Mean Gene Okerlund having their tops off, no? There is something wrong with you. It's a great idea, and instead of having matches with, spoiler alert coming up, Undertaker get dropped in his head, then you should stick them all in the house together and see how they react. It is fucking brilliant. The Legends were, because I respect 10 episodes, about an hour long, 40 minutes long. Everybody needs to watch. It's fantastic. You had Rowdy Roddy Piper,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan,
Tony Atlas,
Mean Gene, rest his soul,
Jerry King Lawyer,
who's that big fan?
Hillbilly Jim, Jimmy Hart, Pat Patterson, and of course Howard Cole. Absolute legends there, and it is it's such a joy, especially when you got the heartbreaking thing of thinking Rowdy Roddy Piper's not there anymore. Mean Gene as well. So you got that kind of impact. A fantastic series. I would recommend to anybody. Dan, have you actually seen an episode? We have not actually seen any of these podcasts because the first one came out in this series was 2014. So April 17th, 2014 to June 19th. So we haven't actually seen any of these.
I don't know. It's kind of a bit much of an ask for an hour. How long are they?
Yeah, an hour each. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
So it's like 10 hours worth of watching there. I suppose I'll probably get about an hour's worth of laughing out of it.
It is well worth it. Trust me. Watch one and you'll be hooked. It's like Love Island, but with old men. Trust me. Next series. Rating out of 10. I'm giving it 9. It's a really strong 9.
Again, it's not something that I've watched, so I can't really comment on it. But if I give it a 5, James is going to bite my fucking head off. So I'm going to go 6.
Oh, 6!
It's something that I haven't watched, but I would want to watch.
Yes, it is worthwhile watching
See?
an episode.
Is that a good answer?
I
to
will
that?
take that answer. Yeah. I get very defensive over the network.
Yeah, even though we're both entitled to our own opinion, James has to give me my opinion. That's how it works. But up next, we have Legends with JBL. And this is just basically John Bradshaw Layfield having a sit down with some old school legends. And it's basically like a little sit down interview with them.
Yeah, basically, you've got people like Stan the Man, you've got Alondra Braze, Bruno Sammartino.
The Outsiders, Sting, Booker T.
I liked the one he did with Farouk. It's probably one of my favourite ones, or Ron Simmons, as it is.
Brian James and Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, the Bischoff ones are probably the best ones because that's probably when he's probably the one he likes the least. He shows everybody else a bit of respect, but he goes hard. And if you're going to have that kind of question answer, you need a little bit of grit. And JBL's just kind of towing the policy line. You know, with him and Ron Simmons, it's just him and having a laugh. So
yeah,
there was better ways of doing this type of program, and I don't think it was great.
No, as if it was a different interviewee or an interviewer. Sorry, if it was a different interviewer, then I think it probably would be a bit more enjoyable. You know, because I think JBL he stays in character a bit. You know, he kind of comes across as JBL, not John Layfield, which is, you know, I'd like to see him sit down as a couple of guys, you know, and just he'll ask a few questions, and then, you know, you can go like that, reminisce on a few stories. I think it could have been done a bit better. Yeah,
I think without doubt, you know, I think this is something that could have been done a bit better, but I'm still going to give it a 7.5 because of the kind of premise is in its right place, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5 as well, because you still get some good insightful looks and, you know, a few good moments as well.
And we have seen that on the network as well. Another thing we haven't seen is the next series, the Monday Night War. This is one of the original shows when the network first launched. This was the kind of one of the shows that was bringing it all to you, and it kind of about the history of WWE versus WCW. Obviously not as good as what we do in a month, but again, because it's more tinted towards WWE, and what we're trying to do every month is try to look at it and say, give WWE a chance, as opposed to writing it because WWE won the war, if you know what I mean. So both might make mistakes, but again, sit down. The only annoying thing is that every single episode, they explain the fucking Monday Night War in every one for the first, 5-10 minutes. And there's no need to. They should just be based on them. And there's quite a few, you know, cool ideas of what they're trying to do here. Like Sting and The Undertaker saying like they're the foundations of, you know, the war, basically.
Yeah, well, if you don't want to go and kind of watch the Monday Night Wars as we're going through, you know, in quite very good detail, picking out the best moments, best highlights, best pay-per-views, this is just kind of like a cheat guide to it.
Basically,
you know, it's just basically like a quick skim over it. It gives you the story from start to finish, but not in great detail.
No, it just tells you, you know, oh, do you like DX? This one's about DX. You know, next one's about Mankind. You know, Bret Hart, then about ECW. So it basically, you know, they're not bad, but they are about well. So if you're going to go,
some of them are an hour.
Yeah, some of them an hour as well. So if you're going to go watch them, then just make sure you got a lot of time because there are 12 episodes as well. So
yeah, about 20. So you've got a whole day's worth of watching there, binge watching and some. But yeah, you know, they've got some good ideas, but again, as far as detail goes, I think we've probably done about 50 hours on it, if not more.
We've done
at least.
Yeah, this year maybe. We've done a lot of stuff on the Monday Night War, but it's not a bad program. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
I'm going to give it an 8. It's, you know, it's not as good as the WNR's take on it, but it's a good cheat skim basically.
Next one, my son daughter is a WWE superstar.
Yeah, you know, this is parents kind of proudly saying about their son or daughter who is a WWE superstar, basically. A few embarrassing stories or what it was like being a younger mother, if that's what the case was, and, you know, so on and so forth. This is more about more recent wrestlers: Finn Balor, Bliss, Seth Rollins, The Miz, Jax, Owens, Strowman, O'Neil, Mandy Rose, and Carmella.
Kevin Owens was really good because I'd say really likeable about him, and even the parents are very sweet and everything that he does. So it's a good program. Again, it's the other one that came from YouTube as well, which was formerly known as. This has been put on there, and again, I'm going to give it the same because 7.5. It's good, But I would like to see maybe like a longer version, like a 40-minute version of spending a weekend with a parent or something like that,
Alexa Bliss's mum's a proper MILF, though.
Yeah, all right. We'll move on from Alexa Bliss's MILF. What's your score out of 10?
I'll give that a 7.5.
7. I'll give that a 7.5. Up next, it is original specials, and another one of my favourite destinations on the network. And this kind of gets you all the stuff that we have watched and covered on the WNR podcast. Some absolute great stuff, and some, maybe hit or miss or not. I loved the Tom McGee documentary that we watched the past couple of months. That was really, really exciting. What about you, Dan?
There are a loads of there's a lot of content on here again. A few of the bigger wrestlers, I suppose. I don't know. It's kind of like a 365 and 24 style kind of show. With different wrestlers and that.
Yeah, I mean, it's folder where they just put all the kind of
miscellaneous.
Yeah, basically the stuff that you got there. So it could be a lot of stuff. Like there was a couple of good bits like ECW Exposed, where it's just Heyman and Joey Styles, and they're basically shooting for an hour. And it's kind of stuff that you might not see, or some of it can be very short, 5-10 minutes worth of stuff, and some of it is very, very good. In a weird way. And it's all just kind of crammed in. So it's just take your pick and just go through what you want. Even like the roster reveals they did of 2K18 is on there. Andre the Giant documentary from HBO, which is fantastic. That's on there. That should be checked out. And you enjoyed, and I enjoyed, the Mick Foley stand-up as well.
That was absolutely fucking brilliant, yeah. The 20 Years of Hell, or, the Mick Foley 20 Years of Hell fan Q&A as well. That was absolutely... I think Nina Strauss plays him out on that.
Yeah, and, there's a lot of stuff, even the Botch Club. The documentary like Nigel McGuinness, which is great. Another great one, let me tell you something, with Mean Gene. Absolutely heartbreaking as well. So this one is one to definitely add to your watch list and go through. And there's a couple of new ones that we'll cover a couple of weeks' time as well. But I think the original specials is a great little folding. I think it should be more, I don't know, like, you should see it more on the network. There should be like a little place for it where you can actually just go straight to, as opposed to going into shows in a weird way.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it?
It has got a few good little diamonds in the rough. You might go through and find some crap as you're going along through it, but that's always the fun of finding something different. Yeah. And especially even if it's just like the Mick Foley Q&A in the 20 Years of Hell, that's definitely worth the whole folder for itself.
I think without a doubt, I'm going to give it a strong 9 out of 10. I'm
going to give that an 8.5.
8.5. All right, up next, Dan, one of your favourites?
It is indeed, Jess, one of my absolute favourites. It is Photo Shoot. Basically, a random wrestler. They sit down in front of a massive screen and they go through photos, and the wrestler are kind of talk through it. It's there hasn't been as many as I like. It goes on for, it's probably about 20 to 25 minutes long. I could do with a few more episodes. It's kind of updated very, very sporadically. We've had like 4 this year added to it. I think there's about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably about nearly 20 episodes of it. And I'd love a load more. Yeah,
I mean, Photo Shoot, I know when we've got one to cover, you're always a fan of getting behind it. Can you pick out a favourite one out of your series?
I did like the Jim Cornette one. It gives you kind of like a good insight, and he tells a few very, very good stories as well. The Eric Bischoff one was thoroughly enjoyable. Even the Scott Hall one, because that kind of goes back to when he was Razor Ramon and he was kind of like in the streets shooting promos, and no one had even known who like Razor Ramon was going to be, and he's kind of shooting bits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was fucking brilliant. The old Vince McMahon kind of going through it. And, I love. Yeah. That's kind of shit I dig on the network, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
What's your score out of 10 for that?
I'm going to give that a 9.
9.5? It's up to you.
I'm going to give it 9.5, yeah. It is something that I absolutely thoroughly enjoy, and it is a very, very enjoyable programme for me.
Yeah. Without a doubt, Photo Shoot is great. I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10. Next one, Dan.
What? So you're telling me that you fucking don't watch something like that and you're fucking giving it an 8.5, but when it's something fucking amazing on Photo Shoot, you're only fucking giving it a low score? I ain't fucking having this. Rant over. The next one up is Ride Along.
Go on, you do that one.
It's just basically a camera in a car following like a drive from stadium to stadium with a few various different wrestlers. You get loads of different combinations of it. It's normally 2 wrestlers in one car and 3 in another, or something along their lines. Now this, it's kind of based on something only a few years ago, but I'd like to have seen this kind of thing, what it used to be like when they was driving 20, 25 hours from place to place, back 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think, they're trying to recreate some of that magic, but it's not as good as it would have been 15, 20 years ago.
The problem is to have, and the reason why they've got the 2 couples is there's not enough content for just to have the one group of people. I think that would make a better show of it, and if you could be a little bit more kind of not as kind of, I think, scripted as it feels. Not scripted as such, but kind of like, put in there, and it's like you have to say, what about this, There are a couple of good episodes, a couple of funny moments. You can see the camaraderie with people like the New Day and DX, kind of old friends and stuff like this as well. But again, it needs, could be a bit better. What's your score out of 10?
I'd give it an 8.
And I too am giving it an 8.
So we move on with rivalries, and there's no heated, more bigger rivalry than me versus you.
Yes, remember our sing-off, not just last year when I smashed you with Rude, Glorious Rude. But yeah, rivalries, apart from that, Austin versus McMahon is featured not once but twice. And we'll list the famous rivalries. Not bad programs to begin with. About 45 minutes to an hour long, and it kind of gives you enough. This is Flair.
Triple H versus Shawn Michaels.
Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper.
Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys.
You've got Matt Hardy versus Edge.
Trish Stratus versus Lita.
Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat.
Rock versus Cena.
And it kind of ends there as well. So this is a program that's not been around for a couple of years, but again does what it says on the tin. I don't mind it. Dan, have you seen any of it?
I have seen I've seen a couple of the episodes and that, but it is just kind of like a highlight reel of their rival, the matches that they've had up between them. It's quite an interesting program, but again, if you want to see the rivalries properly, you have to go and find them in the Raws or the pay-per-view. So it's kind of like a good altogether version of it.
Yeah. What your score at 10?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7.5. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Next one is WWE Slam City.
Slam City again, WWE, but a bit more grown-up version. It's like celebrity deathmatch WWE style. It is kind of like, just wrestling characters, cartoon style, going off against each other. Yeah,
they thought this would basically work. I did see a couple of these on Sky Sports. We've not actually covered any of these on the podcast, and not really worth it anyway. They come on very early on March 17th, 2014, and like I said, it's just kind of, they try something different.
Indeed, yes.
So I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a...
Up next, something else to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. It's not a... For a podcast... look, I'm not going to say I was upset with WWE for doing this, but... Like April 18th, 2018, there was another podcast that would have been fit to be on the Wwe Network.
Most definitely, more successful, better content, our own kind of take on a podcast.
And unfortunately, it wasn't us. And we did cover it on the podcast. And to be fair, we weren't just being harsh, but, I wasn't a huge fan of it, Dan.
I'm not, no. It's just 2 guys with their own matters that happened in WWE.
And Pritchard is maybe, but you can't get into someone's mind and actually think what Vince McMahon thought at that time either. Even though, they do try to talk about CM Punk. We don't know if there's going to be another series. I guess not at the moment, considering the last one was July 11th, 2018. But still, you don't know. And up next, another podcast. What? Oh, sorry. The score, something else to wrestle with. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to. Up next, we've got the Stone Cold, and this is actually Stone Cold podcast were the first podcasts I actually listened to. Before we even started our own podcast, I used to download it, listen to it at work while I was going about my business. And yeah, absolutely thoroughly enjoyable. Stone Cold, brilliant talker. Some of the people we had on it as well, absolutely great.
Yeah, without a doubt, one of the first things that we covered on the podcast was Paul Heyman on the Stone Cold podcast. And like you said, it was kind of real influencer No matter what Jericho might take credit for, it was the Austin one that kind of I started listening to as well, along with Colt Cabana, and then that was the idea of kind of what to do, and I think it's missed out. I don't think he can be Stone Cold Steve Austin on the network. I think we found that out, but again, it's a great program to see what it's all about. What's your score for that?
I'm going to give that an 8.5.
I'll agree with you. Half as well out of 10. Up next, WWE Music Power 10. We have covered this all across the WWE Network as well, and basically give you the top 10 music of the month, basically entrances involved with it. We've seen the WrestleMania ones and something like this. Dan, out of all the entrances on here, what would be one of your favourites?
Shinsuke fucking Nakamura and the multiple violin takeover Brooklyn. Absolutely brilliant. It's a good little run through of it. I'd like the whole entrances in there, full grandeur and kind of what went behind it as well, but it is literally just a quick brief showing through it.
Yeah, it's one of the few programs that got made because, of basically fan demand, but it's not been on for a little while now, so, therein lies the problem with that. But I think it was good when it was kind of around, you know what I mean? But they could have just done a little bit more with it. My score for that's 7.5.
I'll go. Up next we have Story Time, and this is something that I went back and watched kind of like in its whole entirety as well. It's something I had on in the background. Absolutely brilliant hearing, their kind of stories, but they've got little animated things that go with them as well. They're only, 10 to 15 minute long per episode, so, you can shoot through them quite quickly. There's 3 seasons, all with about 5 episodes in it, so 15 episodes in total. It goes through it quite quickly, and it's all harmless enough, good laughs. Good.
Yeah, I really liked it, and of course, hopefully, I don't know if they're going to do it again, because of course it was voiced by the late great Mean Gene Oakley. And like I said, we've covered it a lot. What is your score out of 10?
I'm going to give that a 9.
I'm going to give it an 8. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. That's Story Time. And the next one, WWE Straight to the Source. Only 3 of these, and I'm surprised it never worked out. It was basically sitting down with Corey Graves. Again, we talked about Culture Shock. They tried to give Corey Graves a lot of things to do. This one was sitting down a bit like JBL. Of course, I know your favourite one, Dan.
Yes, it was Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, but obviously having Enzo Amore on it, and they never made any after that. I think he just completely fucking killed it.
It weren't bad, but again, not great. Dan, what's your score?
So
you give that a 7.
Go fish your...
I'm giving that a 6.5. Next one.
Target NXT TakeOver, and this is quite a new thing. It's only had 1 episode, and it was for NXT TakeOver 25. It's basically a behind the scenes of them training for the NXT kind of TakeOver 25. And it goes a good bit of...
Yeah, without a doubt, it's quite enjoyable, wasn't it? We stuck it on just before we went live, and it was quite enjoyable to have it on there and just kind of go through it. Standard stuff that should be on here. Maybe not on its own standalone, but maybe I suppose it weren't part of the original specials unless this is something they do for every takeover, which would be cool. I'm going to give that 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give that a 7.
All right, up next, Talking Snackery. This is another one added from YouTube, and it's basically all about the cooking. And we spoke about this, and Kathy Kelly tried her best with the Boogeyman, the way she ate and everything like this. Basic, but I don't think it really works that well. Dan?
No, there's a few things that go together, and wrestlers and cooking, that enjoyable. When it said Sasha Banks bucket, I've cut off his list of crutch. And I'll definitely eat Alexa.
What? I think you're coming off pieced. What is your score out of 10 for this?
I'll give it a 7.
7.
6.5.
I'll give it a 6. You're gonna
6.5.
You give it 6.5.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Again, I'm not having a go at the WWE here, but March 10th, 2019, you're going to have people watching along at a pay-per-view. There's 2 guys that do that quite well, and we wouldn't mind some superstars here, but instead of us, you get hold of Pat McAfee. And for me, it didn't work, don't get me wrong. I don't mind sitting there for the entire pay-per-view watching a group full of people, but I don't know. Dan, what are your thoughts?
We do it better, so like I say, really. It's this, we have our own unique take on things.
So what's your score out of 10?
6.
I'll give it 6 as well. WWE Superstar Inc. is next. Corey Graves. Oh, what a fucking surprise.
What, another show with Corey Graves.
Well, not just Corey, to be fair. You've got all the guys who've had tattoos. I think you'll be more inclined to speak about this one than me.
Well, because you're covered in tattoos.
Because I've got no tattoos whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just basically wrestlers sitting down talking about the tattoos that they've got, why they've got them, and kind of what inspired them to get them.
Yeah, I mean, if you like tattoos, then that's a thing for you, you know, like Roman Reigns and about what, you know, why has he got his bit of artwork. Do you know why Kevin Owens got his tattoo for?
Brian Ball.
Yeah, in tribute to The Rock, of course. So, you know, you've got that kind of interesting story there. And we see AJ Styles actually getting ink for the very first time. He
gets one of his added.
So, you know, and we see people like that as well. So, it's not had anything since 2017. But if this your cup of tea, I mean, have you seen it? I think we have covered it on the podcast before.
I think.
So, I'll give him that 6.5.
I'm going to give that a
7.
What, you give that a 7? But you give...
Let's just move on, because we're still in originals at the moment. And up next, Dan?
It is Swerve. Again, this is another early kind of tried. I got a couple of seasons out of it. This wasn't great, really, was it? It was kind of a little prank show between wrestlers. It was silly. I think the one that we saw was a microphone covered in shit.
Yeah, well, there's a few. Jeff Tremaine from Jackass tried it. And, you know, you had like the kind of got buzz in the chairs and stuff like this, got scared. And I think it could have worked if done right. But in this kind of day and age, especially with the PG era, it really kind of find its footing. But like I said, 2 series of it. It's one of the first things we did cover the whole series as well. Credit to us. So what are your thoughts on it after all this time?
It's something that could have worked in a different way. You know, if they'd have had the same concept but done it a bit differently, then it could have been fun and entertaining. But aside from, I'm going to give it a 6.5.
6.5 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 7.
Up next is one of my absolute favourites. It is Table. I think I've actually gone back and seen them all at one stage. You know, 3 guys sit down, they have a chat while eating dinner, come up with some very good stories, you know, having a laugh about, like, you know, things that they've done. One of my favourite ones is probably Team Eck, Edge, Christian and Kurt Angle sit down, have a talk and a laugh about, you know, things that they kind of got up to during their times together.
Well, it's quite weird because we know Table for 3. It's one of those programs that have stuck since the very beginning, since August 6, 2015. It's had a series every year, a bit like us on the podcast. We're only a couple of months younger than us, and to go through now and still have it. And like I said, we had the Superstar's wife recently. There's a lot of stuff still for Table 3. It still annoys me people eating with their mouth full and trying to talk, but still, I think it's a good program. But I know you really like it, Dan. So what's your score?
I thoroughly enjoy it.
I'm going to give it an 8.5 just because what it means to us, you know. Yeah. Right, up next. Okay, I'm going to admit something. I have watched, as we go through, near enough everything on the WWE Network. But there are a couple of programs I haven't seen in their entirety. I have seen little clips, I'm not going to lie, but I have never seen the full series of either Total Divas or Total Bellas.
I have never seen an episode, so I'm going to give them both 5. See what I did there?
Yeah.
No, it is something that really doesn't appeal to me, despite the fact that, you know, in Total Bellas, Daniel Bryan and John Cena are part of it. Bella Twins completely irritate the fuck out. They're not someone that I could sit there and watch. Not something that appeals to me whatsoever.
But it does appeal to a certain demographic when it's on E, and there are other people that enjoy it. And I think these types of programs need to be on the network. It may be in a different section, but to try and bring other, you know, people who watch wrestling is fine. But if you want to give them like a more original content, this is stuff that I'm not going to watch. But it's if people watch, you know what I mean?
I know plenty of women that watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, Real Housewives of Orange County, you know, and things like that. And this would definitely be right up their alley.
Right, that, and it'd be something you could put on, and you know, you'd be, oh, there's Daniel Bryan there. But you know, these are successful programs. The Bellas, you know, 3 series of Total Bellas, and Total Divas have been going for, well, as long as I can remember as well. So,
Season 7,
Series 7. So you know, It is incredible success. So I've got to give them 7.5 because what I think a network should represent.
It is kind of a way of getting different eyes on the product, but I'm just going to...
So both get a 7 there. Alright, so both of yours get 7 there, and we move on to Tough Enough. And Tough Enough is fantastic. I've gone out my way to show you clips, especially of, I think it's Series 4, and that's the one. Oh, Series 3. What's it? Series 3 is. I've gone back and watched every single Tough Enough, and it was absolutely brilliant. And there was one where Bob Holly absolutely beat the shit out of the young guy as well. And it was pretty, horrific at the time. But it is showing, how tough you have to be. And again, I love this type of program on the network, and I think in its entirety should be shown here, Have you ever seen... You've seen Tough Enough, of course you have, haven't you?
Yeah, it's something that's quite enjoyable. Again, not something that kind of drags me in, but it was kind of like, what NXT was in its early years.
Yeah, you get to see behind the scenes, anything you couldn't do. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the newer series, and of course the winners of that just got released, even though you did see a young Velveteen Dream involved in Tough Enough.
That is indeed, yes. Patrick Clark Jr.
Yeah, there he is there, just in case. That's July 21st, 2015. And, there's a lot of other guys you see on the Series 4, the $1 Million Challenge, of course. You've got The Miz involved in it as well. So there's a lot of stuff, which I think is good. What's your score for Tough Enough?
I'm going to give it...
7.75. I'm going to give it an 8.5, because I really do enjoy it. Tough Enough.
Up next, we have 25 phenomenal years. If you want a good recap on The Undertaker, listen to our 3 podcasts on him.
Yeah, which was the WNR 25. You believe that? 200 episodes ago, that was now our Undertaker special.
Indeed, yes.
Incredible, wasn't it?
I think we've got sick of The Undertaker.
You did. I love The Undertaker, and this is basically everything that I was talking about. Go back and listen to it, but you've got the Paul Bearer and Undertaker with Kamala. You will rest in peace. You got all of this. Are the best bits of The Undertaker, going through 25 years. I'm a huge Undertaker fan. I don't know if anybody's realised that since. And it's basically all his best moments, and it was something that added, and I think that's just great. I like it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
there's an in-depth on JBL, Shawn Michaels, Triple H also go in-depth on The Undertaker as well, which is not a bad show, and of course his greatest matches as well. So, it does what it says in the tin. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you want to see The Undertaker.
Undertaker. It's a good way to kind of see The Undertaker. On that, I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm going to give it an 8 as well. Up next, Unfiltered with Renee Young.
Again, this is kind of like what Corey Graves had, just someone, just Renee Young sitting down with various superstars having a chat. There's also a very good one with...
Yeah, that's a great one. Again, trying to be something, but not really working. But anything who could pull it off, it was Renee Young. So you can see where she's gone from here now, and there's a couple of other funny ones as well.
Yeah, and it's not just wrestlers she sits down with as well. She sits down with celebrity for Paul Rudd, Stephen Amell, various other. Sits down with Arnold.
Yeah, she's basically in the room trying to get the interview, and as well. Again, program that's alright, but don't really lived up to its potential. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Up next, WWE Untold. Just basic kind of is what it says on the tin. Untold stories in WWE that finally get told. There's only 5 episodes of it. It's not been out that long, to be fair. It started like Mankind's Hell in a Cell shocker. Kind of goes back and tells the story and what happened. His Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Not only that, but which we followed on the podcast as well, but the Sting one as well, and how it kind of went wrong in the end. It's kind of like the kind of more truthful about it because it's more phone conversations and stuff that is put together over the matches. So it kind of you get more truth. And the best one, without a doubt, is the second coming of ECW, where the very kind of 30 seconds is like Heyman saying, I hated WWE, I hated this ECW, and I hope it would die. And that's the kind of shit I want. If you're going to go untold or behind the scenes, you want the kind of real stuff. And for me, it paid off there. That's why I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10.
I'll give that an 8 out of 10. Yeah, it was very enjoyable. There's some a few good stories, a few good things that you wouldn't realise. Up next, we've got WrestleMania. This is basically going back for best matches that they've had throughout its inception.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the earliest, put on the network basically February 25th, 2014, and it was trying to point out everything they had on the network and trying to show them like, look, this is what we got, this little clip, but for you. And it kind of worked for a time, but now it's not kind of rewatchable because if you want to go back and watch the moment, you go
back and watch
it. Even though the talking heads can be quite interesting at some point, you just kind of get more story about the match than anything else, But again, not a bad program, especially because it's one of the originals.
Indeed.
What's your
sorry, my score out of
Paul WrestleMania Rewind? I'm going to give that a 7 because, like you said, it's not travelled well.
Up next is the WWE list. This again, it's kind of like the top 10s. Just going through various kind of like oh my god moments, unforgettable vignettes. The other guys, coolest swag, very different. List, like through the top or the worst faction.
Yeah, we've started it on the we reviewed this on the podcast, and like you said, it just does what it says on the tin. It's very similar to the countdown, so you can't really argue with that, and a little bit longer as well. So I'd say my score for that would be. So I'm going to give that a 7.
I'm going to give that a.
Alright, and our last program on the original. So this is the 44th program on the original list. And now, before we go, we'll review it first. Fuck it, go on. So Zack Ryder and Kurt, I love this program. This is added from YouTube. I can't wait for more episodes. Right up my street. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You've got Ghostbusters toys. You've got all the good shit that I love as a kid. Wrestling figures they go and get as well. All these kind of limited edition ones. It's really up my street, and they do remind me a little bit of You and Me as well. Just kind of one of them's a bit, does want to spend a lot, and Zack Ryder kind of just goes out and kind of splurges on himself.
It is fun for what it is. It's a couple of kind of figure nerds going out, finding rare figures, and just going around various different shops, trying to find figures that they enjoy and like.
It's brilliant. I love it. It's only like 10-15 minutes long, and it's really, really worthwhile. Alright, so that's the original list there. Oh, score, sorry. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give that an 8
out of 10, so 9 out of 10. So that is it for original shows. So there's 44 original shows. Do you think that's enough?
Well, if you go on to the ones that are actually still running, so you could have kind of like originals that are kind of closed down and you have originals that are still running, then it'll be definitely a lot less. There's probably about still going, I suppose. So you can kind of have the older ones in the vault original name or something like that, and keep them, the ones that are still going, in a different folder.
I think that's true. I think that's what we've seen. Maybe divide it up a little bit because it's quite difficult to get across. Do you know what I mean? I know you can get there easier, but to go through all 44 as well.
So if there is one thing that you in originals that you could add, a program specifically designed, what would it be?
I would call it the gorilla position, and it would be the cameras be set up between a Raw, SmackDown, or a pay-per-view, and have it in a position so you could see Vince McMahon or whoever it was in their area, and the reaction when the wrestlers either went out or when they came back after the matches as well. And you can see the reactions and how they actually, see themselves and what was said beforehand, what was said afterwards, and kind of get a really juicy, kind of uncut version of that. If they did that, I'd just watch it. I would want them to put like a camera so you could just watch it. Not throughout the day.
Full stream.
Yeah, or have a camera at WWE headquarters and just watch that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. What about you?
For me, it would be wrestlers talking about their best matches, like over the matches, like kind of like audio commentary. But instead of having JR or something commentating over it, you could have, like, say, Rock and Austin talking about one of their matches at WrestleMania, or, like, Edge, Christian, Hardys and Dudley talking about their TLC match, and then, like, they'll be saying, oh, yeah, remember this spot that happened, and then, like, it absolutely hurt, and, just hearing their own unique takes on their matches that they've had.
I think that's a great idea, actually. I would really, really like to see that.
I would like to see yours as well.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Thank you. All right, so let's look. So your best program was Photoshoot, Dan, at 9.5.
Absolutely,
out of 10. Also, you scored Storytime 9, Table for Free 9 as well. And there was your second highest, so that's your top 3 basically. I scored 2 programs 9.5, which is Beyond the Ring and Breaking Ground. And I gave a couple of 9s out. Legends House I gave a 9, and of course Zach and Kurt as well. So my favourite programme, I think, between the Beyond the Ring and Breaking Ground, if I wanted to see more, fucking hell, it's difficult. Would I want to see more DVD content on there, or would I want to see more kind of the young guys coming through on like NXT? Oh yeah, I'll have more Breaking, seeing it kind of pick out which ones for the future. Alright, so we picked out our 2 best programmes. Out of 10 as the whole category, what would you rate it out of 10 as the original kind of folder as it is?
Because there is some absolute brilliant stuff on there, some stuff that I can't wait for the next episodes to come out, but there's some things, that I could, if you could just delete folders off, then, it wouldn't really bother me.
You're like, oh, it's taking too much space. Go on, take that off, quickly. Take that one off. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to give it a half. It is not my favourite section on the Wwe Network, but I've got to be fair, because otherwise, if I don't know, 8.5. I'll say it's fair enough. So that's the original section on shows, and yes, we are. That's our first folder done. It only took an hour and a half.
Well, pay-per-views are quite self.
All right, so next folder to go to. All right, so our next search will be on collections. And, of course, WWE Network collections were a new thing, I say, a couple of years ago. But I think WWE Network has kind of stopped them now. They kind of put on there. What were your thoughts on collections? Because we used to do new collections every month, didn't we?
We did indeed, yes. It is a good way to, if you're into a certain superstar or match type or under one fight.
All right, so we're going to start this off now. I'm not sure how many collections there are, but there's going to be a few of them. And we start off with the AJ Styles one, Beyond Phenomenal. And this basically picks out all of the kind of the best matches that he had up until a time, which I think 2016 was his debut. You remember AJ Styles' debut, don't you?
I do, yes. Royal Rumble come out number 3.
It was a fantastic moment, a phenomenal moment, and it ends on SummerSlam 2017 against United States champion Kevin Owens. I mean, AJ was a great talent to have a collection on there. I mean, it's all well and good, but it's probably not the first collection you go and watch, because if you've got AJ Styles matches in your head, it's nice for them in a certain way, but they've not updated it either, so you haven't got stuff with his WWE title run, have you? So
No.
I think therein lies the problem. AJ Styles for me, then, if we start collections off with, at 10, I'll give that a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. If it was updated, every 6 months or so. Up next, we have Alexa Bliss, 5 Feet of Fury. You go back to her days through NXT. You see her NXT debut. You see her being kind of like a valet for Murphy. And then kind of like make her. Well, she gets her first opportunity. She challenges Banks, goes on to making a WWE debut, and then going for.
Yeah, it's always a Bliss.
Alexa Bliss, I'd definitely.
Only one?
Nah, I'd give it
8 for Alexa Bliss. Up next, Andre the Giant, and along with his documentary, there's a lot of matches from Andre the Giant's career using here. Anybody who's never heard of the man, or anybody that's never seen any of his matches, it's just got it in one place, and it's good for that. Matches aren't good because after a while it's kind of same old thing. But if you want Andre the Giant, there it is, So for me, that's fine, and I wouldn't sit there all day. You would sit there all day and watch Alexa Bliss. I would not sit there and watch Andre the Giant all day.
There is quite a difference. One's 5 foot tall, and the other one's like 7.5 foot.
Yeah,
tall.
to be fair.
One's very attractive, and the other one's Alexa Bliss.
Hey, oh, thank you very much. What's your score?
I'd give it 6.5.
Okay, up next, Dan. Is it me? Oscar. Oh, sorry. My score is 7. I'll give it 1. Hey. Bliss, Alexa Bliss, I'll give it 8 out of 10. Andre the Giant, 7 out of 10. And Oscar, 9 out of 10, because this is all about the undefeated Empress in NXT.
Absolutely. We got the privilege of kind of watching her throughout all our years when we started doing NXT Update. Absolutely brilliant to be able to go and find. And I still can't Dana Brooke in a debut match at TakeOver Respect. But we won't go into that.
We won't go into old episode.
Highly embarrassing.
We haven't got enough time. So what's your score?
I'll give it a 9 because one of the most dominating, brilliant runs.
Brilliant. Network and WWE might be accused of going back to the Attitude Era a bit too many times, and we've seen a lot of program about Monday Night Wars or the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus McMahon. Again, the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin is basically what it says on the tin, with the speech at King of the Ring 1996 all the way up until his WWF title win. There's a lot of Stone Cold collections, and so what? Stone Cold was fucking. So for me, I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10.
I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. Absolutely love Austin. Going back, looking at some of his most memorable moments. And
yeah, it is, Batista Unleashed is exactly the same thing. When he came, when he made his turn, talking about his first, with Evolution and Ric Flair up until winning the World Heavyweight Championship into now. Again, for anybody who's just, can't be bothered to actually go put the legs in, this right there to go watch it. And Batista's quite a good story considering what he achieved. I'm going to give that a 7.5 out.
Yeah. Becoming the Rock's all about kind of like the Rock, how he started from Rocky Maivia to joining the Nation to becoming the people's champion, The Rock.
And this is the thing, and the moments picked out that we've kind of watched on the network, on the podcast, are kind of here involved as well as kind of joining the Nation. And we kind of see the transformation from, Rocky Maivia and everything he was. And this is what we see with the kind of the Batista stuff and all the other ones that we've got on here as well. I know.
Longed it right out, innit? Cut James's bit.
So what's your score for Becoming The Rock?
Becoming The Rock... Again, I'll have to give it an 8. Is a good and what he.
Yeah, where did he come from? Where did he go? Where did he come from?
Cotton Eye Rock.
Cotton Eye Joe, innit? I'll give you about an 8 out of 10 as well. Becky Lynch, straight fire, eh? Next collection, talk about her early days up in SmackDown Women's Championship. Again, it's good stuff to have the collection, but would you be watching it now with the dawn of the Man character?
I'd like to see it update. With current wrestlers, it is hard to kind of keep on top with things like that. You need to it needs to be focused on wrestlers that have retired.
I think that would make a lot more sense to have all their matches in one place and not have any new good ones, What's your score?
7.5.
I too are going to give it 7.5. And again, we talked about the best of Stone Cold versus McMahon. Again, another folder to have all the feuds in one leading up to, even Raw 25. Not bad stuff. Again, 8 out of 10. Standard stuff for me, though.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. From up next, we have Bobby the Brain Heenan. Again, all of his more memorable moments being a manager, and it is a good. There's a good tribute to it as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, people don't, I think, give Bobby Heenan enough time or respect, and this is one of my favourite folders here on collections because, like I said, all in one place. You just see how such a great performer Heenan was, and even commentary to make you laugh, which he was able to do. It just shows great talent. I'm going to give that a 9.5 out of 10. I'm
going to give that we also have Brett versus Shawn, the rivalries. You can probably go and find this in the rivalry folder. But it's just another way of getting the kind of matches from the rivalry between these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, like the early 1992 stuff when they faced off up until kind of when Brett eventually did leave. And, it's kind of like in-depth stuff that maybe you haven't seen before, much like the Brothers of Destruction, kind of teaming up together to go against everybody else, You've seen them from 1998 and everything that we've seen about to everything else. I think I've based them off very similar to each other, so I'm going to give both an 8 out.
I'm going to give them both. The collection of Jericho is up next. Again, this is basically Chris Jericho from the moment we had the countdown all the way through to him becoming champion. Undisputed. Brilliant, good story of Chris Jericho, an absolute great character from WWE. Shame he's an AEW tosser now, but never mind.
What's your score for Jericho?
8 out of 10.
8. I'm going to give that a 7.5. Kurt Hawkins, world's biggest loser. Well, it's not the case anymore, but it was nice to have his own collection, so I've got to give him an 8 out of 10 for that.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Next one, Daniel Bryan. Well, it's his retirement one, really. So he puts great. Bryan is a fantastic performer, though, isn't he?
He is absolutely brilliant, superb character. Again, it's kind of up to, as you say, up to his retirement. See a lot more memorable moments to come with Daniel Bryan. Hopefully, loads more. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. I have to agree with you there. Up next, the destruction of the Shield. telling the story. The Shield is probably WWE's. Would you say it's the best thing WWE have done in the last 10 years creatively?
Absolutely.
I would say so as well, and I think it shows there, and this tells the whole story of the Shield.
The highs and lows of the Shield, yeah.
Yeah. I've got to give that an 8.5. 9 out of 10, that's a good rating there. Up next,
Dusty Rhodes, baby. Again, this is the story of kind of like the life and legacy of the father of NXT, the American Hall of Fame, Dusty Rhodes.
I don't like to have a go at people, but if you haven't seen the Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo, you're not a proper wrestling fan. So go and watch that. Go and watch this collection as well, because this was about the American Dream, and watch one of the greatest performers of all time. That is a 9 for me.
An 8.5. DX, are you ready? Again, this is the rise and rise and rise DX. All their hilarious moments and absolutely memorable parts.
You were quite a fan of DX when they came back.
A huge fan of DX. They came back, around 2006?
Yeah,
and
Spirit
about
Squad
2008, stuff. Back again in...
Yeah, you always like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's alright, but I don't think it's as good as, elsewhere content for DX anyway. So, I'm going to give it a 7.5.
I'm going to give it an
8. Eddie Guerrero, Viva La Raza, again, much like the DVD of him, all his great matches put together. And if you've not seen any of Eddie Guerrero's stuff before he came to WWE, you're missing out. What about that match at Halloween Havoc, Dan, against Rey Mysterio?
Absolutely top-class match against Rey. A load of his early WCW stuff. Underappreciated, underutilised member of...
What's your score?
8.5.
I'm going to give that an 8.5 as well. And then we've got Edge. Honesty.
They could just play that on a loop for about 3 hours and I'd be so happy.
Yeah, all his stuff from the Brood up to becoming one of the most incredibly successful guys when everybody thought it's a main event. Edge gives hope to everybody who's been around for so long. A great worker as well. I'm going to give him 8.5.
8.5. Finn Balor, worldwide sensation. Irish superstar. Went through NXT, absolutely perfect run. His early years in WWE, again, it's something that you'd like to see updated every 6 months to more recent content, but, hopefully they will at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? If they've stopped collections for a while, then they'll need to do something else, but I think quite a basic one for Balor. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7.5. 4 horsewomen of NXT and next, just talking about their history in NXT. Again, if you can't be bothered to go back and watch individual episodes of NXT, it's a great place to find it, so I've got to give it an 8 out of 10.
There's only a few episodes of it. It is a brief interlude of these 4 women. I'm going to give...
And then Goldberg, Dan.
Yes, I like it when they add their more up-to-date matches, but please don't add Goldberg's latest match onto this. I beg you. But again, the man, he's had an incredible career. If you can't be asked to go back loads of Nitro and WCW pay-per-views and early W, this is the absolute best place to find him. I'm
going to give that an 8 out of 10. The Hardys Team Extreme, again, just show what the Hardy Boys are all about, involved in some of the greatest ladder matches of all time. And when you watch it, you just can't argue against it. So again... No. I'm going to get a 10.
I'll go for 8.5.
And then Hell in a Cell ones and next all in the Hell in a Cell matches put into one place, even the ones on Raw that people might have forgotten about. What is your favourite Hell in a Cell match of all time, Dan?
It's got to be Undertaker,
yeah.
King of the Ring.
It's difficult to beat that, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your score?
I'm going to give that 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there, 8.5 as well. And then, Dan, next one.
Well, it's Jarrett. That's JEFFJARRETT. Ain't he great?
Spend my day working hard on the ball, but the game tops in men too slow. I can wait to be alone with my baby tonight. Yeah, who can hate Jeff Jarrett? Do you know what I mean?
A very charismatic wrestler.
Ain't he great?
Ain't he great? Yeah. Some very good, memorable moments and matches there. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give it an 8 because he's great. So, up next, Dan.
Up next is Jim the Crackhead Neidhart. So it is Jim the Anvil Neidhart. This again kind of a celebration of his life and career. A man who passed away last year. And, there is some very good matches from him as part of the Hart family.
Yeah, I mean, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, like I said, better as a tag team competitor, but will always be remembered. That was put on tribute of his passing. Dan, which is score?
7 3/4.
About 7.5. Up next, all hail King Booker. Now, you hated King Booker, the gimmick. I loved it, and it gave him a world title. And anybody who wants to go back and appreciate his greatness back in, 2006, then go and do it by all means, I'm going to give that a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give that a 6.5 out of 10.
Oh, poor King Booker.
It wasn't. Up next, we've got Kurt Angle. It's true. Again, from his early time in WWE, going all the way back, basically goes from his debut to his Hall of Fame.
There's a lot.
Thoroughly enjoyable, great wrestler, great bloke.
Yeah, really nice guy. Kurt Angle is probably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and to see him come back and have his moment again is fantastic. Brock Lesnar, road to the undisputed title.
Score for Kurt Angle?
I think Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar are going to be the same score. I'm going to give them both 8.5 because this is when Brock Lesnar was actually relevant. Brock Lesnar's road to the title, beating The Rock when no one thought he could at SummerSlam 2002 is a great moment. And I think it's one of these things that you can go back on and watch when Lesnar was actually entertaining.
Up next, we have ladder matches, basically all the greatest ladder matches in one convenient place, just like the Hell in a... a lot of them very ball and a few hard-hitting moments in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we talk about favourite ladder matches, it's very hard to beat out, SummerSlam, WrestleMania 10 with Michaels and Razor Ramon. What's your favourite ladder match, Dan?
It is the ladder match on its own.
Well, any ladder match.
TLC, does that count?
Yeah, TLC.
Triple.
Oh, hang on.
We have Mean Gene Okerlund, again, celebrating the life of Mean Gene. Ladder matches.
So ladder match is 8.5, and I'll give...
Mean Gene, again, it's another beautiful memory of Mean Gene. He was one of the best announcers all time backstage. In some of his absolute brilliant moments he's had backstage as well with other superstars. Great way to remember the legend that was me.
And what's your score for that?
I'm going to give it a 9.
A 9. I'm going to give it an 8.5. Mickey James, Crazy Sweetheart. I think a woman that deserves a lot more credit than she gets. Of course, facing Trish Stratus at WrestleMania and coming back and still trying to stay relevant. But Mickey James, maybe not had the career that she thought she deserved, but successful nonetheless. I'm going to give her a 7 out of 10.
I'll give her...
Up next.
The $1 Million Man, priceless. The legacy of his Hall of Fame career just goes through all his best and greatest. There is a lot of them. Yeah,
he was a great worker back in the early days. So anybody that doesn't know, only knows the $1 Million Man, you can go back and check that out. Another fantastic performer in the ring. What's your score for $1 Million Man?
$1 Million Man, I'll give
$1 Million Man an 8 as well. The Miz, again, fantastic, in what he does. And it just shows you, Dan, proves to you that he is a great performer. Everything that he does, everything that he does in his career, he's worked for, and that's why he's my guy. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
I'll give him an 8 out of 10. Again, he's Hooker. We get the money again. It is just a collection of all the Money in the Bank matches. If that's what you're a fan of, then, you can go back and watch them to access.
Yeah. Favourite Money in the Bank match?
Autumn.
Which one?
Money in the Bank 2013.
Oh, right, fair enough. And what's your score for that?
I'll give it
an 8. Then new classic content for Thunder, which we're not going to rate because that's part of, obviously, Thunder when we get onto that in a bit in Vault. And then another folder which is quite cool, and I think that needs to be more featured heavily, is new to the WWE Network, just to tell people what's literally new to the network. So for me, that makes sense as a folder, and I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10.
I'll give that an 8. Up next, we've got New Day, Feel the Positivity, from the day they started all the way kind of up to... but it is...
Yeah, without a doubt, to get the real origin story of the New Day, it's a good folder to have. But I'm going to give that 7.5, because like I said, it's not updated.
I agree.
Nikolai Volkov singing in their Russian national anthem. Just an entertaining guy, but maybe not the best worker. Again, 7.5 for me.
Yeah, it's a good way to celebrate the life of Nikolai Volkov.
What are you going for?
I'll give that an 8.
An 8, wow. And then up next, NWO for life. Dan, you got your NWO socks on. What are your thoughts on this?
Again, this is good. Going back through the early days, through the start of NWO. An absolutely good way to encapsulate what Monday night was.
Yeah, and again, if you don't want to go see the Nitros, it's right there as well. 8.5 for me.
I'll give that an 8.25.
8.25. Then Patterson and Briscoe Stooge. I love Patterson and Briscoe. If anybody's not know, just go back and see exactly who these two guys are. They were tough guys, back in the day. And then Vince McMahon made them. This is all their skits and their King of the Ring bra and panties match as well. Yes, I said bra and panty. I'm going to give that a 9.
I'm going to give that an 8.25. So we have Piper's, if you like, an early version of the KO. Everyone else has stemmed off from it.
Yeah, and it's brilliant stuff. And it shows you why Piper was such a star, and he didn't need WWE or Hogan to be that in the 80s, I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10.
I'll give that 8.25 out.
Well, Randy Savage always said that the cream rises to the top, and the cream of the crop will always get there. And he also said, Dan, oh, there's a tree. So you have to be careful sometimes what he says. But a great collection to have all this stuff on there. And Randy Savage, one of the greatest workers of all time. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. You've given it the last 4 8. Oh, why don't you?
The next 4 collector one, it is Raw 25 year 100 all the way down.
Do you know what the number one moment was?
The number one moment was...
Yeah, Beer Bath, which we watched recently on WWE versus WCW.
You know what the 100...
what was... Oh, wow, Hugh Jackman. So, what was your score out of 10 for that?
It is a good, fun way of going through it. Yeah, we might not agree with the order of some of the lists, but it is some way. I'm going to give that a 9.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm going to give that an 8.75 out of 10. Up next, Razor Ramon oozing mature. Talking about just Razor Ramon and what he was up to. Of course, the Intercontinental title run. Never really had main event success in WWF or WCW, but another great wrestler.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll give that 7.75.
7.75. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10.
Up next is Rey Mysterio, the biggest little man.
It's almost weird. You can hear Razor Ramon saying it. Rey Mysterio, hey, biggest little man.
Hey, you're the biggest little man. Yeah, this goes back to his earliest beginnings in WCW. A young Rey Mysterio Jr. You see him getting unmasked, and then you see him come into the WWE. Absolutely brilliant career. Definite huge highlight reel for him as well. I'll give that an 8 out of 10. I'm
going to give it an 8.5 because I think we're going to look back in 10 or 15 years and think how good Mysterio actually was. And he is fantastic. You look at his early days, how good he is. And another one, Ric Flair. Again, is it because he's been around for too long that he outstayed his welcome? But the impact of Ric Flair, 2 here, one when he came back, and then one about his early days. There's no denying Ric Flair's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but did his second run damage it, Dan,
We had some good memorable moments. It was mainly for being part of Evolution and being in Triple H's corner majority of the time. Had some very good matches when he came back, especially against Shawn Michaels. And again, you can go back through there and have a look. And if he's wearing red trunks, he's going to be losing. If he's wearing blue trunks, he's going to be winning majority of the time. You can check that out and see if that fact does run true throughout his whole career.
Yeah, I'm going to give his earlier days an 8 and his later days 7.5.
Yeah, I'll stick with you on that. 8 and 7.5 for me as well.
Up next, Royal Rumble match. Again, all the collection. And it's good to have them all in one place, like the Money in the Bank. What is your favourite Rumble match, Dan?
2001.
I really like 92. And 2008 is actually a really, really good Rumble as well. But there's a chance to see them all. 8.5 out of 10 for me.
I'll give that a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
I absolutely thoroughly enjoy a Rumble match.
You do love a Rumble. Rusev, that's one of your matches you fall asleep to the most, isn't it?
Yeah, if I'm falling asleep to a Rumble, don't normally last till entry 10.
Well, up there, Rusev, happy Rusev Day. They dropped the ball with Rusev, showing based on this and how they went wrong with him. But a great talent, though.
Absolutely great talent, brilliant wrestler, super character. Yeah, and again, it's something that they should be updating as it goes.
Without a doubt.
But none of his latest stuff.
They really have, Score?
I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10.
I too will give it an 8 out of 10.
Sami Zayn, never be the same again. You go back through his NXT days, absolutely huge talent. Comes up to the main roster and barely gets a sniff.
Yeah, but a fantastic on NXT. Literally, just go and watch some of this. Sami Zayn. It is well worth it. 8.5 out of 10 for me.
8.5 for me as well. Yeah. Bruno Sammartino, an absolute legend of the ring. One of the old school wrestlers. A huge personality, huge talent.
Well, he's called the living legend when he was around is because of how many consecutive shows he sold out Madison Square Garden, and this dates back all the feuds. Before there was a Hulk Hogan, there was a Sammartino, and this is what it shows. So, just for historical, things, I think there should be more collections like this than there are for the newer ones because, like you said, they've got a complete career then as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. 8.5 out of 10. Where can't wrestling early days. Sasha Banks, the legit. This might be her full career in WWE because, I don't know, she's unhappy with her current status at the moment. But again, someone you go back and have a look at her through NXT, we certainly rated her very high. James, You absolutely love Sasha Banks. I remember your early comments on her saying she wrestles like a man, which is a huge compliment. You go back all the way to 2012 and see her early stuff.
Yeah, well, that fantastic talent, couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you, 8.5 out of 10.
And then we got the two Shawn Michaels ones. We got the Heartbreak Kid about his early days and becoming a character after putting Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window, and of course Mr. WrestleMania as well. What do you think Shawn Michaels' greatest WrestleMania match is?
I think his series with The Undertaker was probably my favourite.
Yeah, I think that stands out at 25, even though the WrestleMania 10 is the greatest ladder match probably of all time. The Undertaker match is just perfect. There's only one fuck up there. There's only one mistake, and that's when he gets dropped on his head anyway. But I got to say, both of these... I like Shawn Michaels, without a doubt, so I got to give both 8.5 out of 10.
I'll give them both 8.75 out of 10. Huge talent, definitely worth a watch. Up next, we have Shinsuke fucking Nakamura, the Rockstar again. We watched him all throughout his NXT career. Absolutely brilliant talent, and then he comes up to the main roster, and you don't need to watch any of that.
No, and it's a shame, but a solid 8 for Nakamura anyway.
8.25 from me.
Yeah. Stephanie McMahon, all business. Not the greatest collection out there, but it just shows you everything that she's done in wrestling, in clip form, and
in clip form.
Clip form, and
right.
it's that's what it says on the tin. Again, I would say Stephanie, impact she's had, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. She has had some memorable moments on screen. Not so much her wrestling matches, but just kind of the clips that she's been involved in. Up next, we have Sting, the icon defined. You see him from when he was a short, blonde-haired warrior-style face paint to his long, dark-haired, more serious Sting. Absolutely legendary career. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Well,
definitely
Sting
worth a watch.
Sting is one of those aura went better because he wasn't around WWE, and when he came in, it kind of took it away a little bit. But still strong. What's your score?
8.5.
8.5. I'll give that an 8. And then the Bar, of course, that's over now, but this wasn't updated all the way. But a great tag team showing, the match that they had against each other to start the Bar.
Best of 7 series,
yes.
Weren't it? And then I think we saw one of their matches live. Went to a draw, so they kind of teamed them up and gave an opportunity against the tag team titles. You see kind of like the face, Cesaro, Sheamus. Like Cesaro kind of turns more heel. That's a good evolution of him as well. But again, another wasted talent with Cesaro there.
Right, Dale. 7.5 for me.
I'll give that a 7.5 also.
7.5. Godfather, all aboard!
I'd love to get on the Ho train. It's all about Godfather. Is this from Papa Shango to everything? I think this is Godfather and Goodfather. I'd like to have seen everything with Papa Shango, from the Papa Shango all the way through
The Carmen, the
Carm.
Nation, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that I don't think the Godfather as a character deserves its own collection unless you're including Charles Wright and, like you said, all the iterations of the character. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10.
I'll give that a 7.
The legacy of Shane McMahon, just showing Shane McMahon being a crazy and just going around and just doing all the crazy things he's ever done. I don't know if many people have taken that many kind of high-risk bumps, but Shane McMahon is one of those dudes. You've got to respect him if you don't like him.
Absolutely, yeah. He is a good, crazy talent, and he's had some very good matches.
What's your score?
To him. I'm going to give that an 8.25 out of 10.
Cool. I'll give that an 8, and then up next?
Up next is the man they call Vader.
What? Time! It Vader, time. The Mastodon. I mean, this man had some fucking great matches. Not only in WWE against like Sting and Cactus Jack, but even when against Shawn Michaels, and they dropped the ball again with this monster. And Vader's one of these guys who I think deserves a lot of credit. And I'm a big fan of Vader, so I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. 8.5. A very memorable career, a great worker, brilliant guy. Up next, we have the NXT Takeover Collection. This is basically, it should be in the pay-per-view selection, really, but it is all the NXT takeovers that they've done throughout the years. Definitely worth a watch. Not one to be missed.
No, it's a good place. Like you said, it's a weird place to have them all, but still, it's got to be an 8.5 for me, just for the.
Yeah, I'll give that a 9. Just for what is in the collection.
That's fair.
Up next, we have the rise of John Cena. Well, you call it a rise, I say it's a decline because I prefer him as the rapping superstar, but he's kind of got a bit more clean cut since then.
Yeah, I mean, but like you said, you get to see John Cena, Dr. Thuganomics back in the day in a spinning title belt. What's your score for Cena?
I'm going to give that an 8.5.
I'm going to give that an 8 because Cena is great. But Undertaker vs Triple H is the next one, and this is all about the kind of build-up after the Super Showdown, not Super Showdown, Crown Jewels it was last year. It just showed a match they had. A couple of great ones, Shotgun Saturday Night, where Triple H got tombstoned on a escalator, and other stuff like that as well. Not a bad collection. 8 because of the content they picked out.
Yeah, I agree with you there. War Games collection, it goes back through all the old War Games all the way back from 86, 87. For all the early War Games all the way up until 98. A very good collection of all the great War Games matches. Basically.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I think, War Games is fantastic. I know you weren't a huge fan, but I mean, there's some stuff that really, really good. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give that an 8.5.
And then we've got TLC tag teams. This is basically looking at all the tag teams involved in TLC and the matches. And it's just a great place to have them all.
This is just a collection of the Hardys, Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. Throughout all their amazing moments and matches, absolutely memorable times.
What's your score?
I'm going to give that an 8 3/4.
8 3/4. I'm going to give that an 8.5. Then the Free Face of the Foley. These collections are quite good, the ones we've seen recently. Like the Free Face Foley, another one that if no one's not sure of the character, you can just have a quick, catch up of Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Mankind. So I've got to give this another 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give that an 8.5 out of 10 as well. Tribute to the troops. This is like a glorified house show that they do in front of the troops. Started way back in 2003. They do one every year.
It's weird that it's here and it's not elsewhere. Like the Hall of Fame. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. That should be on like original shows, and then people can see, or in ring maybe. Tribute to the troops. But again, it's a good thing to have on the network, and that's why the network's there for, to add programs like this. So I'm going to give that an 8.5.
I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Trish and Lita Evolution. This is all about Trish and Lita.
Yeah, it's just it was building up towards Evolution, the women's only pay-per-view, and it's all about their kind of history they had. Were Trish and Lita really the kind of trendsetters back in the day during the Attitude Era, Dan?
I think, amongst a plethora of bra and panties matches and good housekeeping matches, these two women, you can actually see that it meant something to them. And they're definitely like women that kind of kept the women's wrestling business going, and it kind of attracted more women to kind of wrestle instead of just stripping down to the bra and panties.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think with that, and I think with the Trish one as well, she shows that she was a fitness model, and then she wanted to train to become a wrestler, and she actually became quite a competent wrestler. I think Trish was better than Lita in ring, arguably, and I'll rate both of these 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Undertaker, Dawn of the Dead Man. This is the early career of The Undertaker, going back from 1990 up until mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of stuff that we watch too much of on episode 25. This is here. But one of the benefits of having a 25-year career is that you've got a lot of content. And again, I've got to score this an 8 out of 10.
I'll give that an 8.25 out of 10 for me.
8.25. And then the Women's Evolution.
Yes, again, going towards the women's only pay-per-view, it goes through all the way from 1989 with a Fabulous Moolah and Kitty Adams, all the way up until the Women's Evolution pay-per-view, Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. This is a good kind of overview of the women who actually kind of pioneered wrestling throughout the decades. So I'm going to have to give that an 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, 8.5. I'm going to have to agree with you there as well. And then we've got special moments of WrestleMania Monday. And it's not the whole Raw, but it's just the clips for what happened after WrestleMania. I think my favourite is Lesnar's return. Because even though people were expecting it, the pop he got on that night was something else. Any favourite moments from there, Dan?
The Ultimate Warrior returning to give his huge speech in what would turn out to be his last address. There's a very good moment. So I'm a fan of debuts or like call-ups for WrestleMania Monday.
And then next one we've got WrestleMania.
I'm going to score that 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give that an 8. Then we've got WrestleMania Theatre, which of course is a new way of looking at things when Sasha Daniel Bryan and of course Charlotte watch along to classic matches like Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker. Again, not bad, but they never really continued it, so I can only give it really 7.5.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one as well. Hall of Fame class of 2018, I think that should be in the Hall of Fame kind of category collection. It's basically a few matches. What we do for the Hall of Famers, really. They just go through, show some good moments and matches throughout.
What's your score?
I'll give that 7.5.
7.5. And then match of the year, we got 26. For that, 8. And then we go on to match of the year and 2017-2018. It makes sense to have a collection there to see all the best matches. Of course, our matches of the year for that one, well, I remember Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne being on the list, and I'm sure AJ Styles versus Cena was one of them as well. But I think I'm going to give them a 9 because that's what Network should be doing, put all the great matches together.
I am, yeah. I'll agree with you. I'll give that a 9 as well for me, for both of them. You may not agree with the order, but each of their own. Everyone takes away different things from different matches.
Without a doubt. Now, that was a shitload of collections.
That was, yes.
Do you want to take a guess how many collections it was?
I'd have to say 54.
78.
Fucking hell.
Yes, 78 collections there. Well, at least that's the longest one done now, Dan.
We're going to go into in-depth on pay-per-views. So
we've only got... Well, let's first off, after 78, let's just pick what's our favourite collections. Well, Dan, you scored Oscar Collection 9, Bobby Heenan 9, the Shield one as well, NXT Takeovers as a collection, Rumble matches, Mean Gene Okerlund. It says a lot about you, this list. And that was your 9s, and your matches of the year as well. So out of them ones, what are you going to pick as your favourite collection?
I'd have to go with, let me tell you something.
So Mean Gene's your favourite.
So collections, what would we like to see added to collection, James?
A bit more sense alphabetically, or just... I think the network needs a little bit more better on the search function. Right, we talk about ways of improving, and I think the collections could help there by putting them in the stuff in the wrong order. If you were allowed to kind of have an edit tool and fiddle about with the network the way you see fit, I think that would be a cool option. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to content, what do you reckon, Dan?
Well, collections, I think they need a Randy Orton collection. They haven't got one of them in there, but obviously, his legendary career is still going. Probably a WWE Championship collection and a heavyweight champion through all the times that title's, something like that would also be good. Yeah, your edit function's great, and again, there's a few that I could just remove from here and it wouldn't really bother me.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your score for collections out of 10?
I'm going to have to go with 8. You?
I am going to go for 8 as well. I think collections, there could be a bit more work done, but it is a lot of fun, I feel, but not as good as original shows. All right, Dan, so that's 2 down, 3 to go. It's like Crystal Maze. Da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun. Let's get pay-per-view out of the way.
All right, let's get pay-per-views out of the way. So this is when the network first launched. The biggest deal was to have WWE, every single WWE, ECW, and WCW pay-per-view on the network. And in part, that's true. There were a couple of things that aren't right, but I'll get onto that in just a second. So, where do you want to start off in pay-per-views, Dan?
We start off with Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW.
Yeah, ECW. Now, Dan, how many ECW pay-per-views have you seen? Not many. Alright, so the thing with ECW pay-per-views, like you said, it didn't run for long, and there were a lot more ECW pay-per-views before it actually become pay-per-views, and ECW and WWE Network, to their credit, have added some. So like CyberSlam 96 wasn't actually the official pay-per-view. You've got like November to Remember 1995 as well. I've obviously seen every single ECW pay-per-view, and the kind of 1995 stuff is probably the best stuff leading up into 2001. But there are, of course, you've got the 2005 one, is it One Night Stand? Or I can't remember what the fuck it's called now. Yeah, so One Night Stand 2005 and 2006. And again, ECW, it said did what it said on the tin. So if out of all the pay-per-views that you're going to select, ECW probably be last on your list?
Yeah.
And what are the reasonings?
I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of ECW. It's not my kind of thing. Yeah, you know, they had a few good wrestlers: Tommy Dreamer, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, and so on and so forth. You know, it's quite samey. You know, too much of an experience. Whereas WWE, they kind of had it as one pay-per-view a year. You know, it was an Extreme Rules type thing, which was, you know, plenty for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, with the ECW and Extreme style, I think a lot of it suffers even in the 2000s from kind of being just losing all their top talent. You know, people like the Dudleys and Taz who went on to WWE, and it kind of wasn't the same thing until, you know, they did have fans up until going out of business, but, you know, evidently it wasn't enough. Sometimes I think when I was younger, I preferred ECW, like the kind of blood and guts, until now, because I used to watch like kind of a lot of hardcore stuff. You know, even like the kind of Mick Foley, you know, with the Japanese death matches and stuff, trying to sort that out. And now it's kind of more kind of chain wrestling. I don't know if it's just because I've matured a little bit, but I do rate ECW. Some of the ECW stuff pay-per-views are really, really good.
But a company that can have just incredible, like WWE champion or pay-per-views in a row, was barely a C player. But, you know, whatever. They had theirs, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but the problem is with that, I think Mike Awesome was a champion, and then WWE tried to bought him out of the contract for there, and they kind of just kept losing people all the time, and they didn't have anybody to replace them. But I rate ECW, and for pay-per-views to have every single one there, even though there are a few that I wouldn't mind adding from 1994 and 1995 as well, I'm still going to give it a strong score. I'm still going to give it 8.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 for.
Now, might be a silly question, but have you actually got a favourite ECW pay-per-view?
I haven't, no.
So, I was just going to say, if anybody wants to go back and watch ECW, the best one probably is One Night Stand in 2005. June 12th, 2005, because that was when Heyman was allowed to be ECW for that one last time. Anything afterwards is Vince McMahon's hands on it, and I think anything before, you know, I think you just get everything that's perfect with ECW on there.
WCW?
Alright, let's jump south to WCW. Now, there's something romantic about going on to WCW and the pay-per-views. I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just because it's a different company, and a bit unlike ECW, because it's such a big company, and it's just nice to have a bit of different change. You know, it doesn't all look the same.
I do like the variations of wrestlers they have on their pictures. When you go back through pictures, you've got Roman Reigns, Cena, you know, and it goes through. Why is there John Cena?
John Cena?
Great
American Bash, and they've put the the WWE versions on it from 2004 onwards, yeah.
Yeah, it is good, you know. You can go all the way back to 1983 with Ric Flair versus Harley Race, end up battling a steel cage match, and Piper versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. Look at that. Look at their mutton chops.
Look at that. Harley Race, you know, fantastic former champion as well. And that dog collar match, you know, the amount of claret spilt in that, and you can see every single Starrcade. You know, Starrcade was older than WrestleMania, wasn't it? You know, there was a couple of great names as well for pay-per-views as well. Not only that,
yeah, they've got loads. Bash at the Beach, but then they've got Chi-Town Rumble, or Greed, or Sin.
Yeah, but they got stuff like, you know, Spring Stampede, which always started it, you know, and
are they trying to rip off WrestleMania with Wrestle?
Well, it might be, you know, it's Bunkhouse Stampede was put there as an alternative to the Royal Rumble, which was there at the same time as well. You know, Beach Blast and Battle Bowl, but Bash at the Beach had so many memorable moments as well. You know, with the NWO, and more famously, what we're going to be watching.
Yeah, they did. You know, they did have their stand-up ones. Great American Bash, Slamboree, Sold Out was a good one.
Halloween Havoc's a great name.
Halloween Havoc, yeah.
You know, and especially we've seen with the events there, we always try and watch a Halloween Havoc. But we've been watching a lot of WCW pay-per-views these past couple of years. Were you watching? I know you were a fan of WCW back in the day, but how many pay-per-views have you watched since having a network? Do you reckon?
I've watched a few of the World War pay-per-views. A few of the Bash at the Beach ones as well. Halloween Havocs. You know, I've watched the kind of the big name ones from back in the day.
And more recently, what would say your favourite pay-per-view has been? Well, my favourite WCW pay-per-view, want to pick one out that we see. I don't think it doesn't get any bigger than Starrcade 1997 with Sting versus Hogan, with all that build-up with Sting, you know, nearly a year and a half of build-up towards that match. And WCW was the biggest wrestling company in that world at the moment. And if things had gone right, like we saw what happened at WrestleMania kind of 14 with Austin having this moment, rather than what ended up happening, then, you know, therein lies WCW problem. We're seeing the decline now and watching it. But, you know, WCW it was fun. It was an alternative, wasn't it? You know, like AEW is trying to be now, WCW actually was. And we're beating WF for a long time. So I think any go back and try and watch every single WCW pay-per-view if you can, you know, because it is well worth it. It's really nice to have it right there, isn't it, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, no favourite pay-per-view, Dan, but what is your score for pay-per-views, WCW?
I'm going to give it, what did I give ECW?
You get 7.
I'm going to give WCW an 8.5 just for nostalgia.
8.5 for nostalgia. I'm going to give it a 9.25. I would be giving it maybe a full-on 10 if it wasn't missing some important features. There's a German pay-per-view that's not on there from 2000, which I'm not happy about. And there's also a couple of events from 98 as well from North Korea, which should be on there to complete the WCW collection. But apart from that, a 9.25. I think WCW pay-per-view is one of the first things I go to. And Tony Schiavone is much better commentator than I gave him credit for back in the day.
So, what are we going to do? WWE or WWE Alternative Audio?
WWE Alternative Audio is just there for different languages. We have got... No, I'm not going to list them all. There's loads of different languages.
Yeah, so the commentators that we have.
Yeah.
French, Portuguese, Russian, Japanese, Spanish, German, Mandarin, Hindi, and Arabic. I think the Saudi Arabia Super Showdowns.
Yeah, I think that. But I think the Spanish announcers deserve a special shout-out for the years of dedication. Yeah. All right, so WWE pay-per-view, Dan, take us away. Anything about it? Where do you want to start?
Well, it goes all the way back to 1985. For these, for WrestleMania 1, or just WrestleMania, as it were, because that's what it was. You know, you go back through, and then, like, from 88, you had kind of like the Big Four, which was the marquee ones, Royal Rumble, WrestleManias, SummerSlams and Survivor Series, up until they started adding the In Your House collections. What did I do?
1993 was King of the Ring.
King of the Ring.
Mm-hmm. In Your House was from 1995 onwards, because WCW were adding pay-per-views to theirs, and then WWE decided to fight back until we eventually got 12 pay-per-views a year from 1996 onwards. But what's your favourite, when you go back to watch a pay-per-view, what's your favourite years?
Currently, at the moment, it is, 2001. I mean, 2001, the Invasion stuff. I think that's good. Early 2002, you know, seeing the early Eddie Guerrero stuff, and yeah, I think early 2000s for me.
The Attitude Era, with that being involved. I think that's a fair place to start. I mean, there's just so much that you could watch, and even if you fancied watch pay-per-views along with Raw and SmackDown, then you have to kind of tune it in that way as well. But anything is possible. You've got most WWE pay-per-views on there as well. What's your favourite pay-per-view name?
Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble. I always like Bad Blood. I don't know what it is about that. It's one of the very first VHSs I bought, but I think Bad Blood quite a cool name to have. I remember that in 1997. I
do like I like the Backlash name, Armageddon. None of them ones are all shit.
No, Capital Punishment is like Breaking Point's awful.
Clash of Champions is quite enjoyable. The champions from each brand going against each other. Fastlane again, Fatal 4-Way. That's a good kind of stipulation style one. Great Balls of Fire. No. I did enjoy the In Your House style ones as well, but they weren't really leading anywhere. They was just kind of like
It was like I remember like In Your House, Beware of Dog.
Yeah.
Which is always my kind of favourite ones. I one of the things I hope they wish they bring King of the Ring. It's one of these things that can be used as such an effective tool to build talent, and it's just not working. And like I said, it's just so many names throughout the years with certain things, but when you talk about your kind of favourite pay-per-views as well, there's just so many of them. But what out of every pay-per-view show or pay-per-view name, do you think you've seen more Rumbles than anything else?
It'd either be a toss-up between Rumbles or WrestleManias.
And what one would be if you had to pick out maybe 3, WrestleMania or Rumble?
If I was going to go back and watch 3 WrestleManias, the ones I've probably seen the most would be 9, obviously. 17 and 20, I suppose. So,
I mean, this is the thing with WrestleMania. I mean, 17 is always going to have a very special place in my heart. I do think that is the greatest pay-per-view of all time, bar none. When it comes to picking one, I think that's the one. But when you've got so many, there are so many great ones. Like 2002 is a great time. The Vengeance 2002 with a triple threat match between Angle, Taker, and The Rock. Just a fantastic thing, And there are so many other moments to just sit back. And another thing that doesn't get mentioned a lot, when you put a Royal Rumble on or a SummerSlam, and one of the things I do enjoy, they bleed into the other one.
Yeah. One thing that I wish they would do is if you go onto a year, you could literally go through the year like Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view. You could go through kind of like the year in order as opposed to having to go to this Raw, then go to that SmackDown, then go to that Raw, SmackDown pay-per-view.
Well, sometimes I find it fun if I'm falling asleep during WrestleMania 4 to wake up during WrestleMania 7. I always kind of find that,
yeah.
So I quite like that. But sometimes if I've been watching like WWE stuff from like 95 recently, and at the end of it, if I fall asleep during like the Great American Bash 95, I'm going to wake up during Great American Bash 97 as opposed to
a little ways
full
down the
Brawl
line.
95. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't mind it. Go through, but I'm sure there's ways if you can, work it a little bit. I'm sure there's ways of doing it. But that's kind of my pay-per-view at the moment. It's been like just anything from WCW. With WWE stuff, not really gone back recently. I think it's because we're watching the Attitude Era now, and that's probably I don't say it's the best time of pay-per-view, but it's pretty close, isn't it?
Well, again, for me, if I'm going to go back and watch pay-per-views, Invasion's a good one for me. I like the kind of way that plays out, and then I'll play that onto something like Survivor Series 2001 as well. But again, there's so many favourites, so many ones I've gone through back and watched and rewatched. I have to admit though that probably anything from the last 4 years, I don't think I've gone back and rewatched.
No, I've not. No, I really haven't gone watched anything else. I'm not. I might have rewatched an old Rumble or half of WrestleMania, but nothing in its entirety.
Yeah.
But there are so many great pay-per-views. So you think WWE pay-per-views are obviously the strongest because they keep adding to them more than WCW and ECW,
well,
aren't
obviously, with ECW and WCW, they're kind of like a closed product now, whereas WWE are expanding month by month.
And it's still. Do you think it's the best reason to WWE, isn't it?
Yeah,
Without
absolutely. I used to go out and, once a week I'd probably buy myself a WWE pay-per-view, 10, 15, maybe up to £20. And this, and I'd watch it till the fucking disc just keeps jumping and it's absolutely fucked. But with this, for £10 a month, which is less than what I would spend on DVDs, you get...
Without a doubt. And this is that you do get everything. There's not much missing from the pay-per-views, you know, even the kind of British ones and all the In Your House and stuff that when I was a kid and later on desperate to own in the collection, and now it's all here on the WWE Network. I think pay-per-views one of the strongest ones, obviously, on the network, if we were rating it out of 10. What would be your score overall on pay-per-view?
On WWE?
Yeah, WWE pay-per-views, yeah.
WWE pay-per-views, I'll give it a 9 3/4.
So a 9 3/4. That is a pretty strong score. So pay-per-views overall then, WWE, ECW and WCW included, what are you going to rate them?
8 1/4.
So what's not making it hit their high level then?
What on? You know, there's still some holes, as you mentioned, in the WCW and ECW content. And, you know, I'd just like to be able to kind of choose. If I go on to pay-per-views, then, like, you know, it'd come up with the Armageddon ones, and I could watch them, you know, from Armageddon when it starts all the way up to later dates. But if I go on to years, I get to watch it through the year.
Yeah.
As opposed to skipping from, like, backlash to backlash to backlash.
Well, it's interesting to see what they could do with pay-per-views. I think there's a way, easier search function as well. I think it's something they can look at. But pay-per-views overall, for me, I've got to give a 9 out of 10. It's so strong. Like,
what for WWE?
Well, WWE pay-per-view, I gave 9.5 because it's basically all there with WWE pay-per-views, and a 9 out of 10 for pay-per-views overall. Just because the WWE stuff is probably the stuff I watch the most. And that's what I go back and watch because it's different. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I've seen most of the WWE pay-per-views, and WWE and ECW was stuff that you just wanted to watch. You want to watch stuff that you can't get hold of or you haven't seen that you've heard of, and it sounds better. And that's why there's a choice now on the network. And I think pay-per-views overall are one of the strongest ones that we've got. All right, so then we move on, and we've only got 2 left.
2.
And it's time to go in ring. Alright, so originals, collections and pay-per-views done, so it's in ring. So there's all of the new in-ring content on the WWE Network, and the first folder is WWE Worlds Collide.
Yes, this was kind of like a huge event for WrestleMania week. Well, it was over WrestleMania weekend. It started on February the 2nd, running until April the 24th. And it was just all the different worlds, Raw, SmackDown, NXT UK and 205 Live, kind of a huge crossover pay-per-view between a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, we followed this and we got we had the bonus points on the line for the very first episode with Velveteen Dream coming out successful. And of course, they spoiled it for the WrestleMania tapings, but it's not a bad concept, was it, really?
No.
I quite enjoyed it, but should it be on a grander scale, do you reckon?
I would like to see it as more, you know, people that was involved, but the top superstars of it all.
Yeah.
But again, you know, for what it was, absolutely fun and enjoyable, and I'd like to see more of these.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if they could do it, would it be a good standalone pay-per-view in itself to have Worlds Collide, you know, in that way?
I think it would, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be better than Stomping Grounds, you know, to see,
absolutely.
You know, all right, let's everybody just face each other off. Might be more bragging rights, whether it is, but at least it gives the talent that weren't involved at WrestleMania a chance to be involved. So what's your score for Worlds Collide?
I'm going to have to give it an 8.5.
I too will give it an 8.5 as well, because there's potential, and hopefully they can add to it when they get to SummerSlam Survivor Series as well, and maybe have more competitions, you know. I think that would make a lot more sense. Next one is NXT UK. Started in October 2018. A relatively new concept. Absolutely enjoyable. It's starting to get its own kind of stories and you know, rivalries going on throughout that as well. Thoroughly enjoy it. Without a doubt, you know, NXT UK has been a breath of fresh air on the WWE Network, and now you can see people like, you know, Walton, Pete Dunne, Piper Niven, and Tony Storm week in, week out, and it's becoming better than NXT now at the moment, isn't it? You know what I mean? They're building a roster down there, and it really is getting exciting. Because of course we follow it every month, and there's times when, you know, NXT UK is the thing you want to watch, isn't it? You know.
Yes, most definitely. It is, you know, again, it's kind of developed into its own thing. Its early episodes, you know, it was kind of finding its feet, starting rivalries and that, and now that it's kind of progressing, it is kind of like gathering size and momentum and that, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, it is brilliant at the moment, and I recommend for anybody to go and watch it. So I'm going to give that 9.5 out of 10 at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely, definitely worth the watch.
Well, another one definitely worth the watch, and something we've watched since the very beginning of the podcast, WWE NXT, and it's finally been fleshed out as well. So now we can actually go back and kind of watch the real, start of it. What NXT was before it became what we thought, which was basically a competition. And it's really funny to think that NXT was this just after ECW had gone down, and what it became now with Seth Rollins becoming the first champion, of course. They've gone through many figureheads of NXT, Dan. Who's your maybe favourite, kind of champion or figurehead that they've had throughout the time? No, it's a difficult question.
I would have to go with Oscar.
Oscar, that's a great shout, that is. Because you think about, Finn Balor early on, but Oscar, is she the most dominant in NXT? Oh, you have to say so, even if they keep doing the fucking things with Shayna Baszler. But is NXT as strong now as it was a few years ago?
No, I think, 16, 17 and 18 was kind of its strongest, and it feels like it's kind of going a bit down here. No disrespect to some of the wrestlers on there, but it needs to restock their rankings before sending everyone up maybe a bit too quickly. Yeah,
I think I agree with that. I think we've seen with the roster at the moment of trouble. But you've been recommending NXT to people, haven't you?
Oh, I have, yes. My brother, he's downloaded the network onto his Xbox One. He's one of them kind of people, but he's a fan of wrestling, and yeah, I've said, look, if you want to follow a great storyline, the Gargano Ciampa storyline is the best place to go.
Without a doubt, it's so much heart. It's just everything, even the Finn Balor title run, the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens thing, told a story, even Bobby Roode and Nakamura is my favourite NXT moment of all time. And of course the takeovers are involved in this as well as the episodes of NXT. So it's probably one of the best, collections there, even though you have got the takeover collections. I don't know, to pick out a favourite NXT moment is so difficult. Dan, I can remember Nikki Cross versus Oscar, last women standing match.
There's some great moments or memorable moments. In the early days of NXT back in 2010, you used to have WWE pros go into the ring to take on NXT rookies. You've got Alberto Del Rio going on against Derek Bateman.
Yeah, who became EC3. And like I said, that was kind of the start of it. But, since then, since it's become proper NXT, we've seen some great moments,
Oh, absolutely. Kind of Drew McIntyre's run. We've seen
Aleister Black from that as well.
Yeah, Gargano Ciampa story being told in great detail as well.
Samoa Joe fighting for the NXT title with Balor and Nakamura, all this kind of history of NXT, and it's difficult to pick out moments, but I'm just glad we've been on the journey since 2015 and managing to kind of keep up with everything that's been changing. Like I said, the women's division needs work, maybe the tag team division, but, I think Adam Cole is champion right now. Is he the right man for the job, Dan?
You're going to make me say it, aren't you? Yes, he is.
I can't believe it. So we'll see what happens at NXT. It's brilliant. Have you got a moment that you always remember from NXT?
I think it all kind of rolls into one great memory for me.
What is your score out of 10?
I'm going to have to say 10.
Wow. 10 out of 10 for Danny. I'm giving it... Oh, shit me now. Yeah, I'm giving it 9 3/4. I'm not giving it a 10. 9 3. It's better than NXT UK because it's got the takeovers. But NXT UK, if it pulls it out of the bag... But it's great to have that kind of competition between the two. I don't think we know how lucky we are at the moment that we've got NXT and NXT UK as shows right there. All right, next one, 205 Live.
Again, something that we've kind of followed since way back in November of 2016, towards the end of November 2016. And this kind of stemmed off from the CWC tournament that we saw. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that. It was probably one of the best refreshing things we've seen for a long while on the WWE Network. Absolutely brilliant. And to get its own show it's kind of had its ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster. So, its downs, including Enzo Amore being champion and his stupid fucking annoying run. And it's kind of started peaking downwards again after rising up after losing Enzo Amore. Hopefully it can, go on its way back up again very soon.
Without doubt, like you said, since they've lost Buddy Murphy as champion, it's kind of been affected, and it's good that you can admit that as well. And it's difficult, when they've got people like Mike Ken Ellis on the show now. But 205 Live hasn't been treated with the same respect as NXT throughout the years, has it? It's not had its own pay-per-view. Would it have benefited from having its own show, do you reckon? Its own, kind of pay-per-view takeover?
I don't think it was. I don't think it's got enough depth to do it. They've only got the one title there. It needs more.
Exactly,
if it's going to have. I know, it only gets an hour a week. So does NXT and NXT UK, but they tell such a better story over that hour than 205 Live does.
Yeah.
And I think the stories are going stale, and there's not too much chopping and changing you could do with a 205 Live roster, where you can get NXT, you can have wrestlers that have gone up to the main roster to come down and go across to NXT UK, and they can all interchange easier than you can with 205 Live.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, and I think 205 Live needs a bit of work. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. 8 out of 10 for that as well.
8 out of 10. All right, up next, this WWE. And basically, this is a program we have watched on the WWE Network. Like most of the stuff we have, I think all the stuff we've seen tonight on this episode, the only things we haven't watched is Total Bellas and Total Divas. But anyway, this week in WWE, just giving you the Raw and SmackDown highlights for the week and let you see it on the network, because you're not allowed to have Raw and SmackDowns yet.
No, Raw and SmackDowns, I think they're about like a month and a half behind. This is a good little recap show, especially for the shower of shite that and SmackDowns have been as of late.
It's a highlight package, that's probably holding it lightly, but people like Scott Stanford who do this, and I think he deserves credit as well, because he keeps keeping in work, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Superstar Picks, the next one, another new edition, and again it's the old matches being picked by the younger talent, like we see Adam Cole or recently Zelina Vega as well, and of course Drew McIntyre, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens and Sasha Banks have all had picks as well. Again, highlighting old matches if people haven't seen, but this is most of the matches we've seen now through one medium or another now. So, maybe not the greatest picks. I don't mind them when they're talking about the match and what it means to them. But like you said, have commentary over the top of it as opposed to, beforehand anyway. So I'm going to give... Oh, hang on a minute. What did we give this week in WWE?
I'm going to give a 7.5.
Yeah, I agree with you, 7.5. And then Superstar Picks.
I'm going to give that a 7.75. I think it would be better if they was talking over it.
Yeah, and I've got to agree with you there as well. So that's 7.75. All right, so let's stop it there quickly before we go any further with the WWE Network review. Just a second, just like to thank everybody for listening just through 225 episodes from the very beginning down when we started off with Dwayne, moved to Jared, and then we had us, and then we found tremendous success as a duo, didn't we, really?
So we've gone from strength to strength, just the two of us. And it has been some memorable moments and great laughs. Just going back, some of our reactions to winning matches, besting the other person as Randy Orton beat Bobby Roode.
Oh, I don't think up, yes. And Nakamura losing to Bobby Roode were all of my favourite moments. I think from 2017 now, that's how long ago it was, god damn. Did it for so long, but thank you for support. And like I said, we had a tremendous amount of likes and emails and stuff like that, response from our live shows. Well, people really liked what we did, and we'll continue doing that. Like I said, we've got live shows and of course episodes like this as well.
And as always, if there is anything that you'd like us to cover or do, or you'd like to hear us say, don't hesitate to get in contact with James. Is probably normally the best person to get in contact with through many of our mediums that we release at the end of every show. Without
a doubt. And of course we've got the poll coming out soon as well, and it'll be like, hello, have you got... No, it will say what pay-per-view you want to watch. Will it be WWE King of the Ring 1999, or will it be WCW Great American Bash 1999? It is your choice to pick, and that will be going on Twitter very soon. But as a thank you to everybody One of my favourite moments of all time here was when Dan busted out something that I didn't know was a very hidden talent of his. Dan, would you explain your hidden talent and please show off for me?
Well, I do have a few, I would say a few, but a lot of Chuck Norris facts, and these are all true.
Okay, so take it away then.
Well, James, did you know that Chuck Norris had a role in Star Wars?
Oh, did he?
He was the Force. Chuck Norris once urinated in a semi-truck's gas tank as a joke. That truck is now known as Optimus Prime.
Wow, I did not know that.
Chuck Norris does not tell lies. He just changes facts.
Well, he's a bit like you then, I suppose.
While learning CPR, Chuck Norris actually brought the practice dummy to life.
No, he didn't.
Chuck... Come on now, James. Come on.
Sorry.
Chuck Norris has a grizzly bear carpet in his room. The bear isn't dead, it's just afraid to move.
Oh, a poor bear.
Chuck Norris frequently donates blood to the Red Cross, just never his own.
Oh, he's a bad man.
Before going to bed, the boogeyman always checks his closet for Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris died 20 years ago. Death just hasn't built up the courage to tell him yet. Chuck Norris and Superman once fought each other on a bet. The loser had to wear his underwear on the outside of his pants.
That explains it then.
Exactly. Chuck Norris has already been to Mars. That's why there are no signs of life. A cop once pulled over Chuck Norris. Luckily, the cop left with a warning.
Fucking hell.
Chuck Norris went skydiving and his parachute failed to open, so he took it back the next day for a refund. There used to be a street named after Chuck Norris, but it was Nobody Crosses Chuck Norris and Lives.
That's one of the best ones. Yeah, you gotta beat that now.
There's more. Chuck Norris can lift up a chair with one hand while he's sitting on it. Well, you get better, don't worry. Chuck Norris threw a grenade and killed 50 people. Then it exploded.
Oh, Jesus. Right, good job.
Some magicians can walk on water. Chuck Norris can swim through land. And last one, Chuck Norris does not flush the toilet. He scares the shit out of it.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, thank you.
It's Chuck Norris.
With a tear in my eye.
Oh, God almighty, I tell you. Well, we try and move on the silliness of the WNL podcast to the seriousness of the WWE Network review. And we left it in ring and network exclusives. And this is, again, one of my favourite folders on the WWE Network. And it puts it in place. It's a bit of a weird place to have it, but I can understand why. Basically, it's looking at a lot of things here. So, you know, you kind of got the streak coming to an end and the reactions from it. And Brock Lesnar afterwards. You know, you've got the King of the Ring in 2015 when they kind of brought it back. And that was quite cool. That was Wade Barrett winning that one, yeah.
I've got some bam.
You've got Beast for the East live July 4th. And that was kind of mini NXT, wasn't it? Because you had Balor versus Owens and Balor actually winning that one there.
Yes, Brock Lesnar goes against Kofi Kingston as well in that.
Yeah.
Quite funnily enough. We go on. We've got live from MSG, Lesnar versus The Big Show for the first time in for the first time in over 10 years. Brock Lesnar returns to take on The Big Show.
And then you've got like Roadblock, which is March 12, 2016. Ambrose battling Triple H for the world title. And Brock Lesnar facing Bray Wyatt and more. Roadblock was the one that, because of his performances here, basically Ambrose got the match with Lesnar where it was meant to be Lesnar versus Bray. And it's a weird one when you think about actually, you know, the story that it had on there. Also, you know, other stuff like the Draft Centre. And of course, one of my favourite ones is got to be the UK Championship, the first ever tournament happening in Blackpool. And of course, we all know who won that event and how great that event was. Pete Dunne versus with Tyler Bate, of course, winning that one.
Yes, and the UK tournament winner faces Pete Dunne the following.
Yeah, that was the following year as well.
Yeah, the following year, the UK Championship tournament as well, and the UK tournament winner faces champion Pete Dunne.
League of Legends is maybe something that I quite enjoyed as well because it was NXT versus WWE playing computer games. They called Starrcade 2018 as well, the house show basically that it was.
We also had halftime heat as well. That was a absolute brilliant match. Ricochet, Ali B and Velveteen Dream going against Ciampa, Gargano and Adam Cole in a huge 6-man tag.
And of course, finally, we had the Shield final chapter with Dean Ambrose, of course, in WWE, which was a kind of house show. But still, really good. What are you going to give Network exclusives?
I'm going to give that 8.5 out of 10. There's such good content in there, some unmissable moments and matches as well.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a 9. I think that was really, really good. Up next, marquee matches. Another idea, a bit like superstar picks as well, but these are ones picked out to kind of be really, really special, even though they're not really, you know what I mean? It's up to people to decide, but I don't see anything different. We've seen a lot of matches picked out on collections, and I just don't think there's any point to this, really, if you know what I mean.
There are a few good matches, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, the UK tournament finale as well, a few ladder matches, a couple of Royal Rumbles in there, Cena versus Bryan, Cena versus Styles, CM Punk versus Cena versus Del Rio, and a triple threat match inside Hell in a Cell was a good match. There are some good matches and moments, but I don't see why they're not in their own whole category along with, superstar picks and just great matches of all time. I think they're kind of spreading them out a bit. Yeah,
I could agree with you there. I think and maybe some of these matches are available elsewhere as well, so it's kind of like we're a bit, but this is the content we got, and we're just putting it out in a different way. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 for that.
Yeah, I agree with you with that.
Yeah. Up next,
Mixed Match Challenge!
Oh, well, poor old Mixed Match Challenge. We do love a Mixed Match Challenge here. Of course, we've had 2 of them in the same year. The first one I thought was a lot better than the second series, to be fair.
Absolutely, yeah. It seemed like there was a bit more fan interaction, and it was kind of taken more, not as a laugh. It was semi-serious, but I think it was more of a laugh, more fan interaction than the second one.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, we had Oscar and The Miz win in the first series of Mixed Match Challenge, and then the second series, of course, it was Carmella and R-Truth, quite surprisingly.
Well, funnily enough, Carmella and R-Truth are still a thing.
Yeah, exactly. It grew from here, didn't it?
The dance break and things like that. And another problem with Mixed Match Challenge Part 2 was there was too many chopping and changing. I know, like, injuries hampered things and that, but there was a lot of changing.
I completely agree with you there, but I still think it's a good thing, and maybe not 2 in a year, but maybe 1 every year with different combinations. If they're going to use it for comedy, whatever it is still quite a good thing. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, 8 out of 10 as well.
Okay, up next, the Mae Young Classic.
Brilliant. We've had 2 of these NYCs. Both of them absolutely brilliant. Who won the first one?
First one was won by Kairi Sane beating Shayna Baszler, and then the second year it was Toni Storm beating Io Shirai.
Again, absolutely great. A whole lot of talent throughout these. It was good to see a couple of the old faces come back as well, make an appearance. But a lot of talent. Masimoto, I think, was one of our... Was it Masimoto?
Yeah.
Miko Satomura, sorry. Miko Satomura was one of our standout performers throughout that as well. She was a bit of an older classic, but absolutely held her own against the younger competitors throughohout that.
Well, if you look at, what happened in the first Mae Young Classic as well, it was 2017 we go back to. You think about it, in one of the first round episodes, just looking at it, you've got Toni Storm in action, Dakota Kai Kavita Devi, who have all gone to kind of have success, Tanara Conte, Lacey Evans, of course, the main roster now, Kari Sane. So all these women who came in and got a chance. I think the Mae Young Classic is a concept, and I'd love to see it every year, if there is. But we really like tournament. We're tournament fans, aren't we, Dan?
We are huge fans of tournaments, yeah. We like to pick our favourites and kind of run with them. It gives us something to cheer on. It gives us a few extra bonus points to try and earn throughout the way as well. And they provide us with a lot of entertainment as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, the Mae Young Classic is a fantastic thing, and we hope it comes back this year, but we've heard no rumours or anything like that at the moment. So we'll keep you updated as soon as possible. What's your score for that?
I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give that a 9.25 because I absolutely love the Mae Young Classic. And what can I say? I think that's part of the women's evolution as well. What the Mae Young Classic brought to it and what it added. It's a real joy.
Have Raw replays and SmackDown replays as well. These are just going back throughout the whole kind of since number 1. I think they go back to now the Raws and SmackDowns up to what?
Yeah.
Up till kind of like early May is the latest one. There, I think that's the one we was at actually, is it?
No, it's the week after.
Oh, the week after.
Yeah,
so you're a week
waiting.
away. But a fun little game is going back to the Raws that were held in the UK for the past 3 or 4 years, and trying to spot me and James in the audience as well. You get a special shout out if you can email us snapshots of us in the crowd.
Yeah. So every single Raw, and I've tried to watch every single Raw, and I think I got up to about 1995. So the only Raws I haven't really seen in 96, I've seen most of 97s on the podcast as well. And obviously anything after, I've just watched week in, week out. With that, Dan, where's your favourite year? Where would you go now? I've got the years up as we come to select a year.
Again, I'd probably hover around 2000, 2001, 2002, them 3 years there. I absolutely love the invasion angle, and I can't wait until we cover it on the podcast.
Yeah, well, that is coming up in a couple of years' time. But as you can see, just going through it, having everything here. You think I used to record these on my video recorder, do you know what I mean, when it was on Sky Sports. And there might be still a couple, but now to be able to do it. And your idea as well of having a Raw, a SmackDown, and even like a kind of Heat if you wanted to do that, and then the pay-per-view to go along.
Well, you should be able to go onto a year and select, say if you just want to watch the Raws and then the pay-per-views, you go 4 Raws pay-per-view like that. Or, you can add in SmackDown so you can have Raw, SmackDown pay-per-view, and go through it like that. Or add in anything you wanted and kind of edit and customise it to what you want to watch.
Yeah, without a doubt, and it's what's kind of what we do on the WNR podcast, to try and make sense of it all, to have the kind of the Raw through to the pay-per-view, we're involved. And speaking of Raws, our next WWE vs WCW will have June 7th, 1999 Raw 315. We'll find out who the greater power, Dan, it finally is.
Don't it for me.
The greater power will be coming soon. But that's what Raw's fun about. I mean, you can go back and watch right from the start, the Manhattan Center, where your very first Raw, and it's kind of like Razor Ramon and Jeff Jarrett. That's JEFF, JARRETT.
Ludwig
Borger. Lex Luger and people like that. Ludwig Borger, like the very first, and in '94 when kind of Bobby Heenan and Macho Man would leave, but it's still like Bob Backlund and Bret Hart and The Undertaker, Doink the Clown
and his little minis.
Exactly, IRS, nothing like that. I'm not going to do every single year, but this is what kind of makes it fun about '95, because I don't want to be horrible to Raw, right, or WWE in itself. But that's '95, Ahmed Johnson's starting to come out, you got Mabel, so shit is. I would say anything past maybe like, I don't know, like 2004, 5, like Raws are very similar. Is that fair to say, or what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's not. There's not been much noteworthy past that. I mean, they kind of covered everything in the first decade and a couple of years.
Is that fair because yeah. If you go to Raw in 2005 and you've got, who have you got? You've got like Bischoff, Angle, Michaels, Triple H, Cena. All right, fair enough with that. And then you kind of go later on, and they're the kind of guys that kind of stuck around, isn't it? 2014.
The next 5 years.
Exactly, until kind of like, what's 2014? Heart Foundation on there. Rusev, Triple H.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, Mankind. There's Seth Rollins there as well. So it's kind of weird. Do you watch any recent Raws at all?
I've been up since the start of the year. I don't think I've watched any Raw in its entirety. I've just go through, watch the highlights on this week in WWE, and that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, to be fair, it's 3 hours long now, and I think credit to anybody who actually is watching it in its entirety. Like you say, Dan, I think the 2003 maybe, anything after that might not be watching it. I know it's horrible to say. I mean, there are some enjoyable Raws. Don't get me wrong, but you would say the real meat is, up until 2003. But Raw as a whole, to have them all available is a brilliant thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely great. Yeah, it is something that's very enjoyable. But I think they need a kick in the...
Yeah, exactly. What is your score for Raws?
Because it has a whole lot of content, I'm going to still go with a 9. Because, there is so much great moments, and there is everything on there that you could ever want to watch on Raw. Yeah,
when you consider 1993, so it's been going for over 25 years now. It's incredible. And that's for SmackDown. Credit to that's been going 20 years coming up. And SmackDown in the early going wasn't available on Sky, and I was desperate to watch early episodes.
Yeah. Well, with Raw, there's 1,354 episodes to watch.
Yeah.
So, you have got a shitload of content, and SmackDown as well, they're 1,029. So,
how many Raws have you watched, do you reckon? I don't know.
I honestly couldn't tell you.
I wonder if I've watched 1,000 Raws or something like that. It must be going up there.
Yeah, it must be. There must be a lot. I must have watched some hours.
Honestly, if you put that's what you should do as well. Because they have it on other places that Audible tells you how long you've been listening and watching. Just tell you just how long you've been watching. James, you've been watching the network for 8 years,
16 months,
16 months all the way through. I'll give Raw 9 as well. But onto SmackDown again. The early episodes of SmackDown. I think are great, especially and the fist coming into it as well. What SmackDowns are you into?
Again, I have to say Attitude Era because it only came around in '99. So from '99 to about 2002, 2003 was kind of again. There is moments throughout the following 15, 16 years. But, I think that's where it's at its best.
Yeah. And I think we're going to find a difficult situation later on in the year when SmackDown finally does get introduced kind of, for the first time. We saw the pilot, didn't we, recently on the WNR podcast. But when that comes in, because, like I say, they weren't on Sky to begin with, and they're really good SmackDowns. They're like, Triple H fights 6 times. One of them's like a buried alive match in it, and the WWF title's on the line. So a lot of stuff happens on there. And SmackDown, to its credit, has stuck in there, isn't it? I like SmackDown as a show, compared to Raw.
It has, yeah, with something that could have easily ended up kind of like a Heat.
Yeah,
or something, similar to... It kind of took its own, and it was a good B show.
I think without a doubt, and I think that's what you see here. And after so many years as well, I think SmackDown still got... And I think it's the best show out of Raw and SmackDown, which, is good. Is there any... We talked about that. So what's your score for SmackDowns then?
I'm going to give it a 9.25 because, it is... I think it's a bit easier than Raw, being 2 hours long at points. It's more compact. It's nicer.
Well, I'm going to give it a 9, same as Raw, because I can't separate it at the moment. We move on to WWE Main Event. Now, Main Event is a show that is still getting filmed. We saw Main Event getting filmed, and it's got the likes of EC3 and now Cedric Alexander, bless him. But... Weirdly enough, if you go back to the first episode of Main Event, it's going since 2012, so that's 7 years now. Credit to it.
Yeah.
But if you go to the first show, you got you got CM Punk versus Sheamus, the champion versus champion. Shield versus the The Undertaker in one of these ones as well. I don't know which one it is, but the Shield, and it's like fucking hell. There's, you know,
Team Hell No,
yeah,
Battle
yeah,
Royal
yeah.
on there as well. Wade Barrett, Cody, Great Khali.
And then all of a sudden, again, like you talk about a Heat show that starts off quite strong, ends. Well, it's not ending; it's still going on. But is there any point to main event?
I think with the vast roster it is, because, you know, it is somewhere for talent that isn't being used on Raw or SmackDown, or it's kind of an introductory level to Raw and SmackDown, if that makes sense. You know, it's kind of like used to being in front of the crowds that Raw and SmackDown are, but it's, you know, it's not kind of pushing them over.
No, but incredibly, 347 episodes at the moment, all on the WWE Network as well. But again, it's not something I do watch. I'm not going to lie. If I haven't got time for Raw and SmackDown, sometimes I'm not going to go watch main event. You know, so I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. It's nothing that I'd go out of my way to watch unless there was a specific moment on there which happened, which, you know, coming back to nowadays, it's highly doubtful.
Yeah, exactly. Up next, Dan, it's a CWC.
The Cruiserweight Classic. Probably one of the greatest bits of telly to ever come about. I mean, this was absolutely brilliant. What do I say about it? I mean, it was, you know, the likes of Grand Metalik, Ho Lun, remember him? Clement Patois, Cedric Alexander, Kota Ibushi, Sean Maluta. So much.
Akira Tozawa, Tony Nese, Drew Gulak. You know, you think about all the people that have...
and someone we can't forget.
Lince Dorado. Jack Gallagher, we saw him for the very first time there.
TJP, my pick to win the tournament. Who
he went there, Zack Sabre Jr. You have 3 guys in the semi-final. No wonder you loved that. That was just a fantastic tournament. The way they treated it, the way they gave the Taylor tape as well, you know, and all this kind of thing, and presented it. It was fantastic. And those semi-final matches, and even all the build-up, are this thing out there, and that's how you do cruiserweights correctly, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely, yeah. It was something refreshing, and it was probably one of the best things that they've done for a long time. Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
We're going to score it, James.
I am going to score it 9.5.
Oh, I agree.
What an excellent programme, and 205 Live needs to take a leaf out of that book and to be able to use correctly in a more competitive environment. Anyway, we move on to WWE Superstars, and I was speaking to you, I think, off air about this, about Drew McIntyre, and about the amount of matches he used to have on here before he got released, and I'm going to go back to 2014, and I'll bet you my right testy, if McIntyre's around, he'll be having a match. So let me just have a look. Did you see much of WWE Superstars, Dan?
Of course, no, I didn't.
I don't even know, he wasn't around that fucking back, was he? 14. Oh, hang on. Is that 3-man band?
Isn't it?
Yeah, he is. Yay.
But this is kind of like a slight Raw review show mixed in with a couple of little matches. Yeah,
literally. It is like, you know, main event is now. What's annoying, WWE Superstars was actually a thing in the past. It was actually on the show, it was like kind of like the Raw before Raw became Raw. Don't know how many times I have to say Raw there, and it's a shame Superstars isn't featured in that way, or we got the full list of Superstars either, because I want to see some McIntyre matches, you know, when he's jobbing out to people like Justin Gabriel. So it's good that it's on here, but it's not the complete collection, is it? So that's half my problem. Have you gone back and watched any of WWE Superstars?
I haven't.
So, I mean, I think my rating will reflect what I've said. Dan, what's your rating?
I'm going to have to give it...
Well, it gets 7. I give it 7.5 for WWE Superstars. What do you think's better name, main event or Superstars? They're quite misleading both times.
You
don't, you know what I mean? It's not the main event.
Main event isn't the main event, and Superstars doesn't contain Superstars.
So,
I think that should be what Raw and SmackDown is, and then Raw and SmackDown should be Superstars.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think probably Superstars is the better.
All right, we'll move on to talking Smack, and I can't believe WWE Network didn't continue this one, because we had the Miz promo, we had a lot of stuff happening. Yes, it added 20 minutes, half hour to a pay-per-view that was already 3.5 hours long, but there was some stuff here that was brilliant. And like I say, that Miz and Bryan But there was a lot of stuff that we saw. We used to watch it after pay-per-view, Dan, didn't we? So we've seen probably every one of them.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a brilliant, fun concept, something that we used to look forward to. Well, these ones followed up SmackDown, not just the pay-per-views, but they did follow the SmackDown pay-per-views, which is the one we kind of focused on. Was that August 23rd, 2016?
Yeah, that's the one where Miz basically, kind of broke through, and like I said, sorry, it was my fault. Yeah, after each SmackDown as well, and it's good to see it on there. But I think it's a program that it makes more sense to have on, and I think maybe some of these programs are going to be when SmackDown goes to Fox. They're going to have like a kind of a show like this. I've got to rate this highly anyway. I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10.
I think I'll agree with you on that, especially for the moments it delivered. I would happily take half hour off the pre-show and have this at the end.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I think that's a great idea to do that. Up next...
Well, talking of pre-shows, it is the Raw pre-show as well. As if a 3-hour show needed to be any longer, we'd get 15, 20 the show to tell you what's going to be on the show and talk about the show that's going to happen.
People thought they wanted to go onto the network to watch a pre-show for Raw and then not be able to watch Raw, and it kind of didn't make much sense, and I think they gave up around 2015? No, 2016 they made it to. Fair play to them. Scott Stanford, again, we've talked about him earlier, and, others. Again, not very good, is it?
No, it's tough as it is without having to have a pre-show. And you also, what are we going to score that first?
I'll give Raw pre-show a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, 7 out of 10. It's not.
What about the SmackDown Live pre-show then?
SmackDown again. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's nothing that I don't miss it not being around.
No, without doubt. And finally, Raw Backstage Pass, and they tried this, and there's a couple of good ideas. Daniel Bryan's farewell was the last one in 2016, and you kind of have, Sting, like they do when Raw goes off the air, and have them speaking, and that's basically what it is. And a couple other interviews, and moments like this, but they kind of gave up as well. Again, 7.5, because at least it gave you a little bit more extra, if you know what I mean.
7.5 out of 10. If it would included something like the dark matches that follows after Raw, a couple of exclusive interviews, or, things that happen because they've run over time or something, that would be absolutely perfect way to have the backstage pass as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So there's 19 in-ring shows there that we've gone through, and Dan, your favourite was of course NXT with a perfect 10.
And yours?
And mine was NXT quarters as well, so NXT was our favourite shows, which I guess is not much surprise considering how much we do love them.
The whole package out of 10?
The whole package, Dan, do you want to go
on, I'll
first?
let you indulge us first.
No, I don't. What was your score for? Alright, so rate for in-ring now. In-ring's one of the best things on the network, there's no doubt about it. But is it better than pay-per-views? I don't think it is. As for collections, I think it is. I've got to give this a 9 out of 10 because the amount I watch NXT all the time, NXT UK, and you talk about Cruiserweight Classic. I actually might give it more. I'm going to give it a 9.25. Fuck it. I'm going to give it a 9.25 out of 10.
Well, James, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10, purely for the fact that not only does it cover the NXT episodes, but it also covers the NXT TakeOver episodes as well.
You're not all looks, are you? I see what you did there. All right, wow. So that was brilliant for in-ring. That scored really, really high. Of course, we'll tell you what category won. And we have one left, and Dan, it's my favourite one, I feel. We're going back in time. We're going to the vault.
Well, James, I think I'm going to let you take the reins on this one because you are a 50-year-old man in a 23-year-old man's body.
Well, there's not that many, all right, but the Vault is a fantastic section in the network. We need old content. That's the kind of thing. The network's missing lots and lots of content, And that's what we're getting here. We've got All-Star Wrestling. And I hear you say, what is All-Star Wrestling, Dan?
What is All-Star Wrestling, Dan?
It's people like Bob Orton Jr. You know who he is? And Jimmy Snuka and Rick Martel, Tony Atlas, and Jesse the Body Ventura, all fighting for All-Star Wrestling. And All-Star Wrestling was a program from 75 to 82 showing all of WWF's best. You know, we talk about superstars, whatever that was. It just gave you a highlight package of who the guys were at the moment. Look at that young Kurt Hennig there, Ivan Putski, Tony, all the best ones. Moved to the AWA, of course. We all know about the American Wrestling Association, made famous by Greg Gagne, and people like the Rockers started there. Hulk Hogan was more famous to actually being Hulk Hogan here, and then WWF kind of signed him off. You got 83 to 88 here, but only a few, picks. You can still pick out, better ones. Nick Botwinkle is a guy who is an absolute legend as well, kind of like the Ric Flair for the AWA, who was involved there. Have you heard of the AWA, haven't you?
I've heard of the AWA, yeah. It's not something that I've gone back and watched. I think we've seen a few odds and sods here and there, but nothing too major. No,
too major. We've definitely seen some of Shawn Michaels' early work from there. That's where he came from. WWE Clash of Champions, again, another great feature. Much like the pay-per-views, Clash of Champions was there to kind of bridge the gap. Starting in 88, so there was 4 events every year until it finally whittled down in 1995 to 2. And you can just see the change. Obviously, you got like kind of Giant versus Hogan there in 1995. Go to 96, and then you kind of got, your Nature Boy Ric Flair. 97, and it's just a crow in the ring. Look at that. Oh my God. So I've gone back, watched all the Clash of Champions, and the early ones, Ric Flair losing the title to like Sting and people like that, it is really worthwhile until later on, it didn't really matter in that way. But Clash of Champions is one of my favourite things. Alright, we're going to rate them though, Dan, and I don't know how you're going to rate them for the vault, but we're going to try our best here, alright?
I'll let you rate them and I'll take your word for it. I think that would be the more fairest one because, again, this is your domain.
Alright, so AWA. So we start with All-Star Wrestling, and it's not bad, but I'm going to give that a 7.5 because it's not the kind of first thing I go for in the vault. AWA is an 8 out of 10 because of the Shawn Michaels involvement and other things that was there. Clash of Champions is brilliant, so that's an 8.5 out of 10 for me. And then ECW, and of course with the ECW stuff, you're going back and watching the kind of old school stuff. Talked about earlier with the pay-per-views. This is kind of all the stuff from 1993 to 2000. So basically the kind of weekly pros on ECW as the pay-per-view goes along. So you've got a lot of stuff like Cactus Jack and Sandman. And it's really good to kind of fill in the gaps because obviously you haven't got your weekly programs as it was back then. This kind of helps. I mean, look at that. That's from 1994. And there's Cactus Jack. Right, man, you would think he's come. And that is like, 3 years before he would be that in WWF. So a great thing for ECW. Give that an 8.5 out of 10 as well. Global Wrestling Federation. Bill Watts' idea to make it sound, what's bigger than the World Wrestling Federation? Well, Wrestling Federation, isn't it? Packed with all the stars from USWA, like Stunning Steve Austin, Jeff Jarrett, that's JEFFJARRETT, and a lot more. Eddie Gilbert as well, Terry Funk, Jerry the King Lawler, Cactus Jack, a lot of stars who would go on to be, even bigger stars in the early 90s. That's an interesting enough program, so that's a 7.5 out of 10. And then we move on to Heat, and at the moment they've only had it to 98 to 1999. And we've seen a couple of episodes of Heat, haven't we, on the network?
Yes, we have. Again, it's a good little filler thing. I think they tried to make it a bit bigger and better, but it didn't quite take traction alongside Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, I think the best Heats were the one that were full of papers, weren't they? So that brought a little bit more into it, as we've seen with the kind of WrestleMania one that we had as well. And I think, it's good to have the program even though it's not complete. So because it's not, I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. And then WWE Home Video Classics, and it's one of my favourite little things. People might not know this, but we've got loads of them. So we're going to run through the list to you right now. We've got Sunny.
Big Daddy Cool Diesel.
The Undertaker buries them all.
Shawn Michaels.
Paul Bearer hits from the crypt.
German fan favourites.
Well, we know you're a fan of that, Dan. I see you on your Google search, German fan favourites. Is that what it's for? We've got Razor Ramon.
just forget what he's doing.
Yep.
Bret the Hitman Hart.
The Undertaker, the face of fear.
British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith.
Global Warfare.
UK fan favourite 93.
Bret Hart, greatest matches.
Invasion of the Body Slammers.
Don't make shows that anymore. Bashed in the USA.
UK Rampage 93.
Smack 'em Whack 'em.
Wrestle Freeze 93. Wrestle Fest 93.
The Ultimate
Rampage 92.
World Tour 1992.
Wrestle Fest 92.
Crunch Classic.
Euro Rampage 92.
Invasion 92.
Super Tape 92.
Rampage 91.
Battle at the Royal Albert Hall.
World Tour 91.
Wrestling's Greatest Champions.
WrestleFest 91.
Super Tape 4.
The Greatest Hits.
Mega Matches.
Funniest Moments.
Super Tape 3.
Hottest Matches.
Wrestling Tough Guys.
Super Tape 2.
WrestleFest 90.
World Tour 90.
Wrestling Superheroes.
It's a Super Tape.
Demolition.
It's the Ultimate Warrior. 1989 and 1992 version earlier.
Brains Behind the Brawn.
Ho! Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Hulk Hogan, Real American.
Macho Madness.
Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Most embarrassing moments too.
George the Animal Steel.
The Ken Patera story.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
The Hart Foundation ends things. The Ken Patera story is a very sad story. I mean, how can you not these 1980s classics VHS videos that half of them I used to own? Do you know what I mean? That were just covered in dirt that people found in car boot sales and now all on the Wwe Network. How can you not be a fan of that? I'm giving that an 8.5 out of 10. And up next, Dan.
Up next are the legends of wrestling.
This is my favourite. You know that. So home video gets 8.5. And this is the Legends of Wrestling. Now, when you want to sit down and you've had, whatever day you've had and you want to just put something in the background and watch something very interesting, these round table discussions of all sorts of subjects really bring you into it. Honestly, there is nothing better, and they go through everything. So let's just go through the subjects of they talk. We'll go right from the start, and it started off with just talking about certain wrestlers. So it was Piper and Terry Funk.
Hulk Hogan and Bob Backlund.
Andre the Giant and the Iron Sheik.
Jerry Lawler and Junkyard Dog.
Ric Flair and Sergeant Slaughter.
Rivalries Part 1.
Rivalries Part 2.
Biggest Heat Seekers.
Biggest Heat Seekers I actually had on DVD as well. Jim Ross hosted that. And they kind of roasted people like Lex Luger and Goldberg, Buff Bagwell. Vince Russo was your Twitter friend, Vince Russo, they had a go at.
The Monday Night War.
They're badasses.
Territories.
WrestleMania.
Factions.
Worst characters.
Giants.
Important moments.
The soul of wrestling.
Texas wrestling.
Wrestling with patriotism.
Managers.
Southern wrestling.
Tag teams.
The 1970s.
Families.
Achievers.
Greatest rivalries.
Canada.
NWO.
In Through the Outdoors.
Renegades and Outlaws.
The Celebrity Effect.
An Evolution of Hardcore.
And finally, Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, in Through the Outdoors and the other Kevin Nash from NWO, he absolutely slates Goldberg in it. There's a couple of times they really have a go at other wrestlers, which is a great thing to see. And of course, you get to see Dusty Rhodes for talking about his experience. And especially this story with the Shockmaster is one of the funniest things. So I would recommend that to anyone. That is one of my things. I've rewatched so many of these so many times. I absolutely love it. So that is a 10 out of 10 for me, the Legends of Wrestling. Up next, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Dan. One of your favourites, isn't it? I know. NWA champion Ric Flair takes on Johnny South and others in one of the episodes. And this is basically Mid-Atlantic at the time under the NWO stewardship, Jim Crockett Promotions, basically, which would then become WCW. And everything that we knew back in time. To be fair, I've not really gone back and watched a lot of this stuff. I say pre-90s with WCW, still got maybe a lot of catching up to do. But I'll give that an 8 out of 10 anyway, out of respect. And the same for Mid-South Wrestling as well. Another territory back in the day with Bill Watts involved in it. Of course, Jim Ross got his shortcut here. And a lot of others as well. People like Coco Beware.
Beware. Kamala.
Yeah. and of course, let's not forget, involved there as well. And Ultimate Warrior and Sting got their breaks from there. Again, I'm going to have to give that a 8. All right, so then World Championship Wrestling, again, through the time that it was on TV, basically just says what is on the tin.
But if you go back to the 85s on World Championship Wrestling, it is actually NWA Championship Wrestling.
WWE later brought it out, and as you can see, the change as well. And it brought a lot of change in pay as it came across. And this is basically, some people see it as the golden era for wrestling in WCW. People like Terry Funk, Ricky Steamboat, and of course Ric Flair. But again, we've not really touched on that a lot at the moment. We're kind of focusing more on the 90s and, like I said, the Attitude Era now. And hopefully that'll be something we can look at as a kind of history of wrestling as we move on. So I'll give that an 8. And WWE Old School, another great little folder here. A lot of little surprises maybe from either recent times or, of course, I say for recent time, 1997 or going back to 1973. But there's a lot of stuff at MG house shows and everything like this.
Pedro Morales defending the WWE Championship against George the Animal Steel in the main event.
Yeah, Rowdy Roddy Piper taking on Ric Flair. I mean, just select a year, Dan. We've got 97 or 73. Pick a year.
1985.
So 85. And we've got the Boston Garden. And it's Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man Randy Savage. And Bruno Sammartino versus Roddy Piper. Those 4 legends. There you go. Just a week after your birthday, Dan. Andre the Giant, Hillbilly Jim versus Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy. Isn't that worth going back and watching for an hour, a couple of hours?
Well, I was kind of named after Big John Studd.
What, John?
Daniel.
Oh, right. I got to give that an 8.5 out of 10. And then Primetime Wrestling, and this is brilliant, Primetime Wrestling. 2 guys, I mean, you talk about relationships in the kind of way they were. Bobby Heenan was an absolute legend, and I think he works best with Gorilla Monsoon. I think people could argue. But just to see those 2 on screen, really just kind of that connection. And, just this is everything that I love about wrestling. From 89, these guys just entertained. Of course, had special guests. You had matches involved as well. And this is kind of what it was before Raw came about, And I'm a huge fan of that. So I've got to give that an 8.5 as well for Primetime Wrestling.
So we got Saturday night's main event. And that ran from 85 to 92. And then it kind of picked up again for 3 years from 2006 to 2008 as well. Yeah,
NBC thought they could bring it back. Didn't really have success, but this had one of the biggest ratings. Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. We have seen a couple of Saturday night main events, and a lot like Clash of Champions. This was WWF's way at the time to have events that weren't pay-per-views, free to air. But again, there was a lot of good stuff. Maybe not when the relaunch came back in 2006. Go on.
Well, I was just looking. Mr. T faces Bob Orton in a boxing match.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of shit you want. You know what I mean? In 2006, Edge defended the title against John Cena. Batista, Rey Mysterio, and Bobby Lashley battles Mark Henry, Philly, and King Booker. So I have no idea who's facing who in that match, but see, it's all fun. Look, Austin there. That's just before WrestleMania 22. So it's little things maybe people have missed out on, but it's there. You need it. So again, I'm going to give it the same as Clash. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. How much more we got? And then Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Dan. You said you like Jim Cornette. This is his promotion, old school style. Just in 1994, but I mean, lots of young guys made their breaks here. Jericho made their break. And people who may be taking time off from WWF at the time, Bob Armstrong and other people like that. Again, it's just good, but for basically Chris Jericho's career. If you're a Chris Jericho fan, you might go back, unless you like the old style stuff. But with all the ECW stuff and everything like that, Smoky Mountain, I'll give that 7.5, bless him.
All 9 episodes.
And then Southpaw Regional Wrestling, this is fictitious, this is made up, this is not real. This is made for a joke on YouTube and then put on the WWE Network. I watched one, but I didn't really find it that funny, to be fair. But I might be wrong. Have you seen any of this?
I haven't, no.
So I've got to rate that a 7 out of 10, just because I've not really seen a lot of it. I know, people like John Cena are involved in it, Rusev, AJ Styles, Tyler Breeze, and people like that. But again, just haven't got round to it at the moment. And then this is why I'm confused, because we've got WWE superstars here, but it's not connected to the other superstars that we've got. So we've only got 1992 at the moment, and this is really like kind of the Raw it was before Raw started. But you did have a few big matches, a few kind of face to faces as well before the pay per views as it was. And I'm quite a fan of superstars. Just want them to fill it out a little bit. So I'm going to give it an 8.
You retarded.
So before Primetime Wrestling, we had Tuesday Night Titans. And Vince McMahon, Mean Gene Oakland, and of course Lawrence Alfred Hayes hosted this kind of chat show on the WWF. And, it worked. I've gone back and watched a few. It hasn't travelled that well, but, it is what it is. And I think WWF could have something like this nowadays. What do you think, Dan? A chat show?
I agree, yeah. They could definitely reinvent something like this a bit more, up to date. And I think, it'd receive good views. Yeah,
I think it would as well, so I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Alright, so we move on to WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling. That was the Von Erichs that were involved. Very tragic, of course, with Fritz Von Erich, the dad. And, of course, it's all about the Freebirds going up against the Von Erich family. And, of course, everyone really ended in kind of tragedy, except for Kevin Von Erich. And we've talked about Von Erichs in the past. Of course, you knew him as well. Texas Tornado, didn't you?
Yes. I used to have a wrestling figure that used to spin around at the midsection with his arms held wide. And
World Class Championship Wrestling is great to go back and see, only for kind of a select period. I say select period, 82 to 88, so you've got quite a little bit there to go back and kind of see. And again, 8 out of 10 for me. Really, really is worthwhile. Alright, so one of the reasons I got the network as well is, WWE paid the fucking Nitros, man. And I know it's only like 95 to 2001, but I must have seen near enough every one now. And I mean, we're going back to like the very start when Lex Luger made an appearance, to the very last one as well, Sting versus Flair. And every Nitro, I think, has been really worthwhile. Have you gone back and seen any old Nitros since you've had the network?
No, I haven't.
But you used to watch Nitro at the time. I suppose you haven't gone back and watched any of the Wolfpack or anything like that. Or was that my job?
We cover them on the network. We cover them on the podcast.
Yeah, we've been following Nitro since the inception. We watched the very first episode of Nitro, so we've kept very close to that. And like I say, we're on 1999 now. And next episode of Nitro, just in case anybody is interested that we're watching the WWE versus WCW, is of course June 7th, 1999. And we've got Kevin Nash and Macho Man Randy Savage rivalry, which will be exciting. But I do love Monday Nitros. They are close to my heart. And I will give Nitro a 9 out of 10. And kind of even more the forbidden fruit, because Nitro was kind of available. Thunder was not around. And even though it started and kind of was a downfall to WCW, we've had new content added to Thunder as well up until 2000 now, and started off in 1998. And I do love me a Thunder, this is the stuff we've got to look forward to next year, Dan. Let's just go to, there we go. Oh my God, explain Thunder for us right now.
In one of World Championship Wrestling's most controversial moments, the WCW Heavyweight title is on the line in a tag team match main event that sees David Arquette and DDP take on Eric Bischoff and Jeff Jarrett. That's JEFFJARRETT. Yeah,
and that's when David Arquette actually wins the World Heavyweight Championship. It just happened. I selected that one. I'm going to give it an 8.5 because, again, it's a piece of history and it's an alternative. Like I'm saying, it's good to have alternative.
It's a piece of something. I'm not sure if history is the right word.
Well, talking about history, before Nitro, we had WCW Saturday Night, and this has been one of the things I want more on the WWE Network as well. And it's kind of all the big matches that we had. People like Steve Austin involved, Vader, of course, Ricky Steamboat, and eventually everybody else. That would be on Saturday night.
You say Steve Austin, but I see a bloke with long, blonde curtains. James, is that Stone Cold Steve Austin?
That's stunning Steve Austin. But, people like... people might think that's Mark Mero. But
Ravishing McRory.
It's Johnny B. Bad. Oh. So, people go back and they can see all this stuff before they really become... Look, this dude's pushing a fucking car. Cactus Jack is getting help push the car. I mean, come on now, man. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 because Saturday Night is one of my favourites. Recently added W Confidential. We covered this on the podcast. Mean Gene Oakland, Dan, presents this show. A lot of stuff from 2002, 2003. It wasn't as confidential as it really was. The best episode probably with Stone Cold Steve Austin when he walked out. McMahon absolutely slated him, and even The Rock saying like kind of dropped the ball and everything like this as well. That's probably the most newsworthy one. It's June 15th, 2002. But confidential, to see Mean Gene talking. I mean, the kind of things we miss now, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely, yeah. Things like that happen backstage, and it is a good talk on it, yeah. Yeah,
and I think Mean Gene's the best man for it, so I've got to give that an 8 out of 10 as well. Really, really enjoyable stuff with Confidential. And then WWE ECW. It's the stuff Paul Heyman hated, but it's on the network now. The final episode from the very first episode, 2006. 2010. Did you ever watch any of the ECW back in the day?
No. There's things I'd probably go back through and watch, like, the CM Punk moments throughout that. But, aside from that, it probably wouldn't interest me at all.
No, I mean, there was some awful stuff, Like I said, to see people like CM Punk and John Morrison taking strides through. But after a while, it kind of really got busy. Morrison as well had a lot of success in ECW. But it's good to see it, to see what become a lot of, things went wrong with ECW. Kurt Angle leaving, of course, the Chris Benoit tragedy, and eventual demise. But it's good that it's on there. And again, a very strong, even though the content's not that great, it's still 8 out of 10 for me. And then finally, Hidden Gems. It's something we follow every month on the WWE Network. And I absolutely love this category because it just gives you hidden gems. Just pick. Oh, fantastic, aren't they,
Yeah, absolutely. There's, it goes from FCW champion Seth Rollins defending his title against Cassius Ohno, or you've got Dean Ambrose going on against William Regal. They are just literally hidden gems.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And, the latest one, talk about, select. Look at this. Look at the selection of years here. 55 to 28.
1951.
1951 to... my TV can't even fit that into a screen. That's how far low down it goes.
The first one is Fez versus Gunkel. A journey back in time to see Lou Fez defend the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Ray Gunkel in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
And the latest one is a UK title, Pete Dunne versus Mark Andrews, where you can see us in the crowd there because we are front row. That is involved in the hidden. You don't believe me? So my favourite show, without a doubt, was Legends of Wrestling on that. But I have got a lot of 9s like Nitro and Hidden Gems and other stuff. I do love the Vault. I do love the Vault section. For me, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So let's work out what the best thing is in the WWE Network. On the Hidden Gems, June 8, 2017, you see me and Dan at ringside.
For Pete's sake, go back and watch it. Again, send a picture to James of us, and you win a free shout out.
Without a doubt. So that is everything on the network. Talk about schedules quickly. Do you actually go on the schedule at all and watch it?
No.
No, I don't really either, apart from obviously when it's pay-per-views and stuff. I think there's a little bit more they could do with schedules. If it's like Rumble pay-per-views, just keep playing them. I know they try to. But, I think the schedule should be important in that way. As for search function, I've not really, we talked about it before and the things that we would change as well, wouldn't they, Would you like to personalise your account in any way?
Yeah, I'd like to be able to kind of make a playlist.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool, Would you want to see any other content added to the WWE Network?
I'd like to see some more new content.
What new in what way?
Like I mentioned throughout some of the shows, I'd like to see wrestlers choosing their favourite matches that they've been in and kind of talking over them. And, just a few little other bits and pieces that make me happy as well.
All right. So here we go. We've got the scores for what category was better. For originals, I said 8.5, you said 8. Collections was 8 all. Pay-views was 9 for me, 8.25 for you. In-ring, 9.25 for me, 9.5 for you. And Vault is 9. So overall, the in-ring section got the most in both of our cases, 9.5 and 9.25. So I guess in-ring is the thing we watch the most here. But out of all the programs, which would you say is your favourite thing you've ever seen on the WWE Network?
NXT.
NXT. That's so your favourite program is NXT, and I think it'll be hard to argue against that as well. Even though I do love all the kind of classic content that's involved, I might, when you look at pay-per-views and everything like this, it's difficult to argue against. But it's just how much great content there is on it, I think that's what we found. So overall, Dan, for the network, what is your score out of 10? First off, is it worth $9.99 a month?
Absolutely, yes, without a shadow of a doubt. After these, there's been over 225 episodes if you include the extras and the stocking fillers and so on and so forth. But the amount of content we've watched on there, and we've barely scratched the surface. It is. Yeah, definitely worth the $9.99 a month. And all these people I've seen online, they kind of cancelled their subscription just because they don't like a pay-per-view or where the pay-per-view is being held, or one reason or another. Completely silly, pathetic reasons, I believe. But each of their own. If you don't want to pay for it, don't. But I think it is more than worth the $9.99 a month.
I think without a doubt. So what is your... I should say, sorry, the Vault had 25 programs. So if you add the 25 to the 19 in-ring that we had there, and then we add it to the collections, of course, that was 78 collections that we went through. And then, of course, the original shows, which was 35... 157 different categories or different folders that we went through. That's not counting the WWE pay-per-views and everything that we went through. If we did that, that would be an incredible figure. So I think discounted WWE pay 157 different things. I think there's a lot on the network to watch. Like I said, it's definitely worthwhile.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a lot of crap that, but different people like different things. So, what we might find crap, you might thoroughly enjoy it, and, fair play to you. And things that we enjoy, you might not enjoy as much.
Exactly. But there's a choice there, and that's what the good thing about it is. Overall rating out of 10 for the network?
I am going to give it, for just content and everything, I'm going to give it 8 3/4.
8 3/4 out of 10. So it can do a little bit more. We've talked about the kind of change, like I said, maybe newer content to it. Would you want to see other promotions involved in the network?
I would love to know a few independent promotions involved in it. As much more of the independent stuff as they can get. There's a lot of UK independents about, as we've kind of read off a huge list of them. Loads about America and, different countries across Europe, Mexico, and everywhere.
Without doubt, and this is what we do on the WNR podcast. It's not just WWE, but it is, trying to look at everything else that's going on in the wrestling world. But the WWE, network is our bread and butter, and that's why we do the network review and everything else. We couldn't do what we do today if it wasn't for the network and what we did right to begin with. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because, it needs a bit of improvement, but I love the network. And, with Netflix and everything else, I would say the network is the thing I probably watch the most anyway. But that is it, the full-on WNet review. We don't have to do it again now for another 125 episodes, Dan. So we'll be fine. So there you go, it's 250, done. So 225 episodes time, so it'd be, 450 we can do it again?
450, yeah.
Yeah, so episode 450, there you go, that's not bad, So anyway, thank you everybody for listening and just everything, we say thank you, but we mean it from the bottom of our hearts. And Dan said earlier, you can follow us or send us a message wherever you can on social media, on Twitter at WWE Network Review
and WWE.
I'm at @J_Rowlands across all the Google platforms. Send us an email at WNRpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram, the WNR Podcast. We're on Facebook.
Yes, Facebook. You can find our page and give us a like with a WWE Network Review podcast. And come and find me and add me as a friend. I am Vince McDan.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Wwe Network Review Podcast. We've got all clips on there. Podcasts go up on YouTube at the same time as other places like SoundCloud.
On your phone.
We're on Spreaker Radio. We've got live shows, Stitch Radio and iTunes. But you can down and subscribe if you there.
But that's not it. We've also got our website underway, which should be finished around the time of SummerSlam.
SummerSlam next year.
SummerSlam 2020.
Yeah.
No, it is a work in progress. We want to make sure we've got everything done properly before we kind of release it. And that is the WNRpodcast.com.
But you can get all the contact details on there. Our next episode is WNR 226, which will be Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia.
Also known as Super Shit Show in Saudi Arabia.
Get all our thoughts from that. And of course, all the other goodness that comes from it. I have been James Rowlands, and as always was joined by
Dan White.
Thanks for listening for 225 episodes.
And thanks for listening to 225 more.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.